You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without commercial interruptions. The revolution will not show you pictures of Nixon blowing a bugle and leading a charge by John Mitchell, General Abrams, and Spyro Agnew to eat hog balls confiscated from a Harlem sanctuary. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by the Schaefer Award Theater and will not star Natalie Woods and Steve McQueen or Bullwinkle and Julia. The revolution will not give your mouth sex appeal. The revolution will not get rid of the nub. The revolution will not make you look 5 pounds thinner because the revolution will not be televised, brother. There will be no pictures of you and Willie Mae pushing that shopping cart down the block on the dead run or trying to slide that color TV into a stolen ambulance. NBC will not be able to predict the winner at 8:32 on report from 29 districts. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of Whitney Young being run out of Harlem on a rail with a brand new process. There will be no slow motion or still life of Roy Wilkins strolling through Watts in a red, black, and green liberation jumpsuit that he has been saving for just the proper occasion. Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies, and Hooterville Junction will no longer be so damn relevant, and women will not care if Dick finally got down with Jane on Search for Tomorrow, because black people will be in the street looking for a brighter day. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no highlights on the 11 o'clock news and no pictures of Harry armed women liberationists and Jackie Onassis blowing her nose. The theme song will not be written by Jim Webb or Francis Scott Key, nor sung by Glenn Campbell, Tom Jones, Johnny Cash, Engelbert Humperdinck, or The Rare Earth. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be right back after a message about a white tornado, white lightning, or white people. You will not have to worry about a dove in your bedroom, the tiger in your tank, or the giant in your toilet bowl. The revolution will not go better with Coke. The revolution will not fight germs that may cause bad breath. The revolution will put you in the driver's seat. The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers. The revolution will be live.
I'm talking about shout it going crazy. People going crazy in these motherfuckers. Run that shit back, man.
But it's nothing. Nothing. Got a woman on the bed. Man made the car. Carry the heavy load. Man made the electrolyte to take us out of the dark. Man made the boat for the water like the 7 Omega. Man thinks about a little bit of baby girl and a baby boy. Man make them happy because man make them strong. But after man make everything we can, do you know that man makes money? To buy from other men. This is a man's world.
Grand Risings. Thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of Grand Rising with Shabaka and the Chase. I'm your host, Shane Crewman. We're running a little bit late, actually a couple hours late. Usually go on early in the morning and now it's afternoon. But the show must continue. It looks like I'm going to be solo dolo. And on this season 10, episode 40 of Grand Rising with Shabaka and the Chase, I will be discussing several topics. The first topic is white man shoots and kills, or almost kills, shoots a black veteran in Seattle. Then we got the situation that's going on in Washington, D.C. with the dump as in human shit. And we wanted to have perfect clear. White man shoots black wheelchair veteran in Seattle, Washington. Stephen Miller is advising Trump to ramp up the anti-black racism in Washington, D.C. Stephen Miller said this about black people in Washington, D.C. Trump attacks black history. CNN debate on erasing slavery from museums. Much watch debate. Trump threatens Smithsonian over slavery exhibits. Native Americans, the $5 Indians, in fear of deportation. ICE detaining tribal citizens and why punctuality matters. Let's bury the black people's time stereotype. We are based out of East Denver, North Aurora, Colorado. We give the news from a Front Line and Blacc First perspective. We are a part of the new Blacc Media and also the signal boosters in the new Blacc Media. We have been around for 5 seasons now and counting. We have several platforms that are part of the Frontline campaign. Frontline Blacc News is just one of the 3. And we've been around since 2020, 2021. So please join us on StreamYard, YouTube, Frontline Blacc News. The links to all of our channels are in the description, including Jay Millie's What's Cracking TV with Jay Miller channel. Kukizi, who does the intro track on the Frontline Blacc News. Link is in the chat description. And Church of Black Power, our brother out of Watts, California, who's now in Houston. His link is also in the description. Please support the GoFundMe Lady Che has set up. And then we got the copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. And I do not own the rights to the music. And if you don't understand racism or white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything you think you understand will only confuse you. And that's from the great Nelly Fuller Jr. R.I.P. to him. He just transitioned this past February. And then we got, if you, a black person, are captured by any race soldier, you must never fuss, fight, or flee. Comply and defend yourself in court. Also by the great Nelly Fuller Jr., who just transitioned back in February. And last but certainly not least, we got racism, white supremacy as conscious and subconscious behavior to maintain white genetic survival to prevent white genetic annihilation. Dr. Frances Cress Wilson. And she also rests in power as well. Salute to crew. Salute to Mac 285. Yeah, I don't know where Shabaka is. Shabaka did something really bad. I'm not gonna tell y'all on the air, but let's just say I'm not happy about it at all. Like, share, and subscribe to Frontline Blacc News. That's right, twin. Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna hop right into it with the topics. So Professor Black Truth's gonna give us an update on the white man who shoots black wheelchair veteran in Seattle, Washington. This is on his, Mac 285. got that as the first topic. So, Professor Black Truth's gonna give us an update on that. This is his moment of truth this morning.
And now the Friday Crime Report. Seattle, Washington, July 31st, 2025. Harold Powell, age 68, is a Navy veteran who lives in Seattle. In the service, he had been a submariner. His career, however, was cut short when he was struck by a drunk driver in 1991. Since 95, he's been playing music for donations on Seattle's waterfront. He's regarded fondly by the people there and described as a regular, usually playing music and bringing good vibe to the waterfront. People are used to peace and quiet and pleasantries there on the piers, but white supremacy has created a class of super predators who break the peace. As we've seen in so many other instances, a white man showed up and started an argument with Mr. Powell for no reason. According to the criminal complaint against him, the perpetrator approached the victim, who was in a wheelchair on the boardwalk near Starbucks, and he demanded the victim provide identification to prove his military status. As the victim was taking out his wallet, the white man who accosted him then removed a military patch from the victim's belongings. This caused the victim to arm himself with a knife. The white man pulled out a handgun, pointed it at the victim, and shot him point blank in the chest. Now, this was a racial ambush, and if you look at the video, you see the guy standing several feet away from the victim. He wasn't standing right on top of him. There was no imminent threat or imminent anything. He didn't just happen to show up there that day, by the way, armed with a .45 caliber pistol. He started an argument with a complete stranger in a wheelchair. He went there to carry out a broad daylight murder. He had that in his empty head before he even went there. Now, today, Harold is recovering at home. He had been released from the hospital on Sunday. The perpetrator has been identified as 32-year-old Gregory Tim, and he's already trying to claim some sort of self-defense, but prosecutors have said regarding self-defense in Washington state case law, a defendant cannot claim self-defense if the defendant provoked the altercation. If you provoke an attack upon yourself, you lose the right to claim self-defense. But of course, these white supremacists are on code nationwide. Prosecutors are admitting the most obvious thing of all about the no self-defense argument here. He walked up on a wheelchair-bound elderly old man, accosted him, argued with him, stole property off of his person, and then attempted to murder him. Prosecutors are not charging this animal with murder, though. Instead, all this attempted murder is being charged with is first-degree assault. The judge even offered this reprobate bail, $750,000. This was attempted murder, not a fistfight. But you have prosecutors attempting to protect this would-be killer, and they're doing it openly. And you won't be surprised to learn that this isn't this criminal's first brush with the law. Back in 2020, as the pandemic was getting started, this criminal lived in Jacksonville, Florida. That's Moron DeSantis' Florida, mind you. In this criminal act, Tim took his van and deliberately drove it into a tent full of political volunteers who were conducting a voter registration drive. That time, he was charged with 2 counts of aggravated assault on a person 65 years old or older and single counts each of criminal mischief and driving with a suspended license. His bail in that case was set at $500,000. Even Donald Trump, who was president at the time, weighed in on that incident, so even the president was aware of this case. And yet, in Moron DeSantis' Florida, he got the same charges and even the same bail amount as what he got earlier this month. And if you're wondering whatever became of that case against him in Florida, a year later he went to trial and was acquitted on all charges except the criminal mischief charge. The judge immediately let him go with time served. It took that Florida jury less than an hour to call him not guilty, so they had their minds made up beforehand. And if you'd like to know what mind-blowing, incredible evidence that this violent punk's defense lawyers offered to beat the rap, they had him take the stand and say it was all just a joke. No, I'm being literal about that. That's what he actually said. He took the stand and said that trying to run people over with a van was just a prank. Quote, crashing is a strong word. I still consider it was a prank. It was the most stupid thing I have ever done, and I have had a lot of time to reflect on this. You know, that reminds me of one of Paul Mooney's comedy routines. White man, why did you try to run over a bunch of people with your van? It was just a prank. I've had a lot of time to reflect on it. Ooh, he said it was just a prank. We can't send him to prison for a prank. Besides, he's had some time to reflect on it, and that's enough. Now you let a black person be charged with the same thing. Hey, nigger, why did you try to run people over with your van? It was just a prank. I've had a lot of time to reflect on this. Well, your prank wasn't funny, and you're going to have 25 years to reflect on it. But this happened in Ron DeSantis' Florida, when he was bragging that they're so tough on crime, and Trump, the president himself, commented on it. So we see for the umpteenth time that where these red state reprobates are concerned, when they talk about being tough on crime, that doesn't include white offenders. We'll continue with the moment of truth in just a moment, but first, a word from the official sponsor of Black Empowerment, Power Tools. There's no telling when something's going to come up, so make sure you carry your power tools at all times. You never know when you're going to need to bring the hammer down, or when you'll have some trash that needs to be blown away, or some obstacle that requires cutting down. Don't get caught empty-handed. Keep your hammer close by. Keep that leaf blower at the ready, and always carry your steel. Power Tools, because no matter what your day job or side hustle may be, there's no excuse for not being ready to put in some work. This degenerate did this in Jacksonville, Florida, and he was given a slap on the wrist. This is the same Jacksonville where only 2 years ago, a white supremacist, inspired by Ron DeSantis' anti-Black crusading, murdered 3 Black citizens in cold blood. That was the direct result of DeSantis' nonstop anti-Black rhetoric and political performative extremism. It was meant to embolden precisely that kind of violence, and that's what it did. And now this creep has gone to Washington state and committed a far worse crime than the one he had 5 years ago. And the authorities there are treating this as just criminal mischief. When this happens, these are not oversights. This is not the system failing. This is the system working exactly the way it's designed. This system was designed to produce targeted harassment and mass incarceration of Black people, regardless of whether they committed a crime or not, and is designed to not touch those classified as white at all, unless they kill a white person. Then there may be some minor punishment, but as I documented for you on this channel, that's not always guaranteed. And the people who administrate this injustice system, they're the ones responsible for it. DeSantis and his gang of inbreds down there were all hot and bothered to write laws meant to target Black people. They wrote a law to legalize hitting protesters with your vehicle as a direct response to the BLM protest. Well, you have a white man who tries to run over campaign volunteers with his van, Republican volunteers no less. And DeSantis and the tough-on-crime Republican legislators didn't pass one law. They didn't do anything. And when he was acquitted, there was no legislative response from the GOP legislature in Tallahassee either. The system is color-coded because the racists who administrate it operate it that way. They're the ones who make sure that it stays that way. We keep having these incidents over and over and over again on a near-daily basis, where you got some white man with a gun who runs around acting like he's playing out some death wish vigilante fantasy. Be it Kyle Rittenhouse, Daniel Penny, Daniel Perry, the racist in Texas who killed a white BLM activist and Greg Abbott pardoned him, or this latest scumbag in Seattle. This is white privilege. This is racial immunity from law. Because you never see a Black person shoot a white person, veteran or not, wheelchair bound or not, and then simply get an assault charge. Racially privileged armed thugs are protected in this society. And that's why we see so many mass murders take place by the exact same demographic. Be honest. If the headline said that this blonde 32-year-old male had gone to the riverfront in Seattle and just began shooting people at random, just opened up on them, would that be a surprise? Would anyone say, I can't believe someone would just open fire on people for no reason at all? When have any of these racially privileged punks ever needed a reason for suddenly firing on people? This crime in Seattle didn't happen because of an argument. He went there with a gun specifically because he intended to kill someone from the very beginning. And these murderers are protected to commit these crimes, whether it be in a red state or a blue one like Washington. Seattle's supposed to be so liberal. That's how they promote themselves. Why they had BLM protests 5 years ago. And there was even a brief Occupy movement. Well, you're seeing exactly how liberal it actually is. When it comes time for them to actually have to confront the reality of racial immunity from law and white privilege, that's when you find out whether or not these people are actually real about law and order. And time again, consistently, we've seen they're not. They're all about a color-coded injustice system. Because as far as they're concerned, they have to protect the racial immunity from law that trash like this Tim character enjoy, because it's what the rest of them also depend on for their own perks, privileges, and racial guarantees. And that's the reason why when it comes to Black people in general, you can't be running around just with a knife at a gunfight. You got to be prepared to protect yourself and not be asking permission. That's the reality when you live under a system of white supremacy. Self-protection for Black people is a must wherever we are. And it doesn't matter if you're out and about, at home, or on the riverfront, just minding your own business. White supremacy is always looking for the next soft target. And if they decide that they're going to try to come after you, you got to be prepared to let them know that it doesn't matter if you're in a wheelchair or not. You won't be taking white supremacist aggression sitting down. And that's this week's Friday Crime Report. Keep your eyes open and stay on alert, because there's a lot worse criminals out there than the ones the white corporate media chooses to show you. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Mouse, Isaac, Alan Reese, Gregory Franklin, and Faith Speaks Life. Salute to them, and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.
Yeah, this is actually a topic that Shabaka wanted to discuss. 2, MIA. Yeah, this is very unfortunate. I'm glad the black vet actually survived this attack. Very unfortunate he had to go through this. And this stresses another reason why we need an anti-black hate crime bill passed into law for reasons, for situations just like this. This black man served our country, served this country, and this white supremacist had the audacity to question if he was a veteran or not, and if he actually served the country. And when the brother said, "Yeah, he gonna shoot him," so what the hell? What the hell is that about? These white supremacists are something else. So keep your power tools, black family, at all times. So moving along, we got Stephen Miller is advising Trump to ramp up the anti-black racism in Washington, D.C. For those that don't know, Washington, D.C. is under basically martial law. And the police, the National Guard, has been deployed to Washington, D.C. after one of Trump's Doge aides got attacked during a carjacking, they're saying. But we showed y'all on them episodes that I can't find now all of a sudden that was a hoax. So now the Democrats is crying foul, even though 2 years ago, they was begging for the National Guard to come into D.C. and deal with the crime that was going on. But now they keep saying crime is down, and there was no justification for this at all. But when Biden was in office, they was begging and pleading for the National Guard to come save them from all the crime that was going on in D.C. So now that the dump's in, oh, Orange Man bad. So one of his people, Stephen Miller, is advising the dump ramp up the anti-black racism in Washington, D.C. They got police and National Guard, but mainly the police running up in black people's homes. We showed y'all that on previous episodes. And yeah, so Uncle Phil's going to give us an update on what's happening in D.C. Stephen Miller is advising Trump to ramp up anti-black racism.
You know, with the Trump administration, the main guy that's behind a lot of the agitation is Stephen Miller. Now, Stephen Miller was on his first administration, but now you want you to see what's happening in D.C. Now, J.D. Vance is down there and Stephen Miller. I want you to hear exactly what Stephen Miller says. I not only want you to hear what he says, I want you to pay attention to his eyes, the way he's speaking. I mean, this guy is extremely, extremely hateful in a lot of ways. Let's go ahead and check this out.
It's kind of crazy. You hear these guys outside. They appear to hate the idea that Americans can enjoy their communities. They do the fact that D.C. a week ago had a higher murder rate than Trinidad and Tobago. We're not going to let the communists destroy a great American city, let alone the nation's capital. And let's just also address another thing. All these demonstrators that you've seen out here in recent days, all of these elderly white hippies, they're not part of the city and never have been. So we're going to ignore these stupid white hippies, and we're going to get back to the business of protecting the American people and the citizens of Washington, D.C.
Now, he kept pointing out that they're white hippies. Whoa, what? Okay. Now, aren't y'all the main people always talking about why y'all is bringing up everything about race? Oh, y'all the main people always talking about race, saying don't be bringing up race. Why you got to be called Black American, white American? We just Americans. Y'all make everything about race, but yet the people outside, all of them are white. I don't believe that. But you're saying that for a reason. Basically, what that coded message was, hey, white people, you're being off code. And I'm going to keep saying white because you're supposed to be on team white supremacy. And you don't supposed to be out here going against nothing we're doing because we're trying to do this for the betterment of white supremacy so your children can still be in leadership when we all gone. You understand? But Stephen Miller, he's the one that was, pushing ICE for 3,000 arrests per day. It was him. This is why they're going out there. Trump has let him have free reign. Now, this is why I was saying in my stream is that they're creating the conditions for the Democrats to get back in power. And for us, it's like you don't win nowhere, right? You don't win as the Republicans are in office. You don't win as the Democrats in office. We just don't win as a people. We have a lot of black politicians in the Democrat Party, but they'll do nothing for us. Not a thing. Because they wait for something like this to happen. That's why they're like, oh, shoot, we're going to get back in. Hey, let Trump do whatever he wants to do. We're not going to say nothing. We're not going to stand against it. We are so cool. Let them do black people that. We are fine because they're going to put us back in office and we still ain't got to do nothing for them. You understand? That's where things are at with that Trump administration. Now, Muriel Bowser, she's not saying anything. And she's supposed to be the mayor of that city and not saying much of nothing, not standing against anything. My main thing is this. If the Democrats come back, I would still like the Congressional Black Caucus gone. I would like black people to get mobilized to vote, get them out. And the reason why we need to get them out first is because we have no representation. We have black people, but we have no representation. None. And you see other groups are getting ahead of us politically. Why? Because they actually got true representation that represents their community. But we don't have nothing in ours. And that beyond sucks. Because we don't have nobody advocating for reparations. We don't have nobody advocating for an anti-black hate crime bill. We have none of that. That guy, Stephen Miller, is a bona fide anti-black and anti-whoever else racist. We see it, we know it. And that's come to be expected. You understand? But our politicians aren't doing anything about it. None. But if they want to say something, they talk about immigration. Or they want to talk about the voting maps here in Texas. Nothing specifically for us. Why haven't the Democrats addressed all the black women getting fired? Why haven't they addressed about the cuts that was coming in? Well, they didn't address any of it. But yet they're going to want us to go vote for them in 2026. And some people going to feel like they're in a rock and a hard place because they see all the craziness Trump and them are doing. And then at the same time, you put the Democrats back in and they don't do nothing for us either. Because the Democrats are all sold out to corporations as well. Now, at one point in time, Democrats are supposed to be the party for the middle class, you know, and those who are the working class, but not no more. That's kind of where it's at right now. But all this mess you're seeing, that all these attacks on black people, these attacks on even with the immigration thing, it's not an attack on us. I'm just talking about in general. It's Stephen Miller. Now they were saying that Trump, you know, one of the insiders leaked out. Trump said that if it was up to Stephen Miller, this country would have just 100 million people in it, and they'd be all white. And that's probably what he would like, but it's not going to happen. You're not going to get rid of millions and millions of people. It's not going to happen. Even though you can deport all you want to deport, Trump won't be in office long enough to deport that many people. It would take at least a good decade to get that many people on out of here. And that's if you are really being aggressive with it. And he don't have a decade that he's in office. Even Obama had to deport a lot of people, and he still didn't even put a dent in it. And whatever dent Obama put in, Biden replaced them. So now you're back to square one all over again. But yeah, this guy, Stephen Miller, watch him. He calling people communist. Who's a communist? Why somebody got to be a communist because they disagree with what the hell you doing? It's the language they're throwing around. PBS don't have funding. You know, and a lot of kids watch PBS, right? Now they're not going to have funding. That's why it is a need for children's programming. And that's something that eventually I want to create. Is learning programming for our children and have our children represented, because I'm a firm believer that we need to corner the market on all media. We need to corner the market. We need to cover, you know, like I said, no matter if it's music, entertainment, news, politics, education, for everybody, including our children, whether you're doing cooking, whether you're doing some sort of worship of God. We need to cover everything of media, because it came to me one day. I said, you know what? I gotta, in my own way, gotta recreate that BET model, because that BET model really worked. But we take the lessons of what BET was doing that was good, and then some of them that wasn't good. And that's the ultimate goal for what we want to do on our app is recreate BET. Definitely. But this Stephen Miller dude, man, every time I see this dude, Stephen Miller, he just get on my last nerves. I'm telling you, because I can just see the anti-black racism seething off of this dude. I see it. And the interesting part is, and like I say, because, you know, J.D. Vance, he's married to an East Indian woman. That woman is dark. But, you know, we have Vivian Ramaswamy, dark as I don't know what, and they think they white in the mind until they step out of line. Now, I know good well they talk about J.D. Vance behind his back, because them true white supremacists don't like the fact that he got an East Indian woman. They don't like that. And them children don't look white. They look Indian, light-skinned Indian. You understand? I don't see how that works out very well, white supremacy, when he got an East Indian woman, you know? But, you know, let me know what y'all think about, you know, Stephen Miller. And keep, like I said, keep a close eye on that gentleman. Keep a close eye, because that dude there is definitely charged up with anti-black racism.
I agree. All right, I agree with everything Uncle Phil said. To hell with Stephen Miller and the white supremacists like him. So Tariq has something to say about this. I'm gonna play his Twitter space that he did on this next.
Darling Radio, like and subscribe. Darling Radio, like and subscribe.
Thank you. And first of all, thank you to the Vice President for bringing us here today. Thank you, Secretary, for your leadership. And most importantly, thank you to the men and women of the National Guard. Here's the most important point. There are residents who lived in Washington, D.C. their entire lives. Their parents lived here. Their grandparents lived here. And they have lived for generations in intolerable conditions of crime and decay. There are parts of the city, I moved to the city 20 years ago. There are places where I have seen graffiti that has been untouched for decades. There are homeless encampments that have made it impossible for families to use public parks, and public recreation for as long as I've lived here. There are hundreds of residents of this city who are shot in street violence every single year, making it one of the most violent cities on planet Earth. And for too long, 99% of this city has been terrorized by 1% of this city. And the voices that you hear out there, those crazy communists, they have no roots. They have no connections to the city. They have no families they're raising in this city. They have no one that they're sending to school in this city. They have no jobs in this city. They have no connections to this community at all. But they're the ones who've been advocating for the 1%, the criminals, the killers, the rapists, the drug dealers. And I'm glad they're here today, because me, Pete, and the vice president are all going to leave here, and inspired by them, we're going to add thousands more resources to this city to get the criminals and the gang members out of here. We're going to dismantle those networks, and we're going to prove that a city can serve for the law-abiding citizens who live there. We are not going to let the communists destroy a great American city, let alone the nation's capital. And let's just also address one other thing. All these demonstrators that you've seen out here in recent days, all of these elderly white hippies, they're not part of the city and never have been. And by the way, most of the citizens who live in Washington, D.C. are black. This is not a city that has had any safety for its black citizens for generations. And President Trump is the one who is fixing that with the support of the Metropolitan Police Department, the support of the National Guard, and our federal law enforcement officers. So we're going to ignore these stupid white hippies that all need to go home and take a nap because they're all over 90 years old. And we're going to get back to the business of protecting the American people and the citizens of Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Stephen. A few questions.
All right, we're in the building. We are in the building, ladies and gentlemen. Glad to have you guys in here. Welcome to the Tap In. Round of applause to you. Welcome to the Tap In. We are tapping in heavy. And I would like everybody to give me a fly retweet. That would be great. If you can give me a great retweet, that would be absolutely phenomenal. A lot of stuff we're going to touch on the broadcast. Before I get started, everybody go to hiddenhistorymuseum.com. Get the book Hidden Heroes from A to Z, and also make a contribution to the phenomenal Hidden History Museum. Let's do that. And before we get started, let me give some shout outs to some of the regulars in here real quick. We got Michi God, Highland, Black Republican. We got Kevin, Ty Powell, Trinity, Sir Mike Noel, FBA Goddess, Grinds TV, The Tethernator, and many, many other. Sister Empress, FBA Think Tank. Much respect to the family, respect to the law. Family, the first thing I want to touch on, your boy, Stephen Miller of the Trump administration. Stephen Miller, he was up there with J.D. Vance. They had they did some kind of press conference earlier. And Stephen Miller, they've been accusing that man of having all types of alt-right, white supremacist ties for the longest. People have been saying that. So it is what it is. But he did a press conference. They were trying to justify putting more National Guards on the streets in D.C., pulling more militarized police in D.C. He was up there doing a lot of dog whistling. He was talking about as DC has all this crime, it's majority black city. And yeah, the black people, they've never been protected from crime. So watch the wording, watch how they're trying to frame it. You're not trying to protect black people by going around harassing all innocent black people. You're just harassing innocent black people. That's not protecting black people from anything. That's out of that, what's his name? What's the guy's name in New York? Why am I having a brain fart? Yo, my New Yorkers, what's his name? That old decrepit ass former mayor of New York, Giuliani. There you go, Rudy Giuliani. They're trying to take some out of his playbook, that tough on crime. He's tough on crime by stopping and frisking all the black people. See how I save you black people from crime? I had people harassing you before you could commit a crime because you're so criminal prone. Is that type of narrative. So they were using a lot of dog whistles. Stephen Miller was talking about all of this crime, and the Trump administration, they're talking about doing some kind of probe because the crime, he said, is underreported, which it's not, because they're saying that the crime is low in DC, which it is. The crime is down, but no, Trump is like, no, we got to challenge that. We're white and we say so. Basically, just a bunch of I'm white and I say so. But Stephen Miller kept using the term communist. He kept using the word communist, and he was talking about some of the white protesters who are out there. Basically, they're protesting against these federal agents being used on immigrants. And he was like, oh, these white hippies, all these elderly liberal white hippies. So they were doing a lot of dog whistling. But we got to understand and see, family, we got to really, really reframe this Black crime narrative. We got to reframe that. I keep telling people there is no such thing as Black crime. I'm going to say it again. There is no such thing as Black crime. The thing is, the media and the dominant society, they understand the power of repetition. If they just keep saying something, if they just keep saying it, ultimately it'll just kind of catch on. That's why they keep trying to get in front of the foundation of Black American Renaissance. Too many people are speaking on it. So this is why they send their operatives to jump out and try to miscategorize what our lineage is. That's a counter narrative from the alphabet people. That's a psyops. But we got to understand when people just keep saying, and the media keeps saying Black crime, and that really started in the 70s. That Black crime narrative, that started in the 70s. Real heavy in the media. They just kept saying Black crime, urban crime, Black crime, Black crime. And then they started making movies about these white vigilantes going out fighting this Black crime. Like the Dirty Harry movies. Y'all remember those? It's not a coincidence that these types of movies started popping up right after the civil rights movement and right after quote unquote immigration, when Black people started moving into these big urban centers. All of a sudden you got Clint Eastwood playing a cop who's an enforcer and running down on the Black gangsters. And then you had movies like Death Wish with Charles Bronson doing the same thing. These white vigilantes go out into the streets, go into the subways to enact justice on the criminal element. You see, that was a real big thing. And then in real life, it started happening with the Bernard Guest story in New York in the mid 80s. A white man went out here and actually shot some Black folks talking about they were trying to rob him. And then he became a national hero among white supremacists. And if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Bernard Goetz Jewish? Wasn't he Jewish? Yeah, now my New York people know who Bernard Goetz is. It's a very infamous story back in the 80s. But for all these white supremacists who love talking about Jewish this, oh, the problem is the Jews or whatever, boy, they don't have a problem with the Bernard Goetz of the world, do they? They do not have a problem with them. You can look him up real quick. All right, I think he was a Jewish cat. I'm looking it up real quick. But I think it was a Jewish cat. I'm looking it up. Bernard Goetz. Yep, Jewish. Yep, he's Jewish. His mother was Jewish. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, don't let them fool you with that. It's the Jews gather against the Jews. Man, please. These white supremacists, Christians work with anti-Black Jewish people, anti-Black Buddhists, anti-Black everybody. They all work against us. But understand, you have to see how Stephen Miller and other people, they weaponize race for political justification. So when Miller's talking about DC, it hasn't had any safety for Black citizens in generations. Well, that's because you're not allocating resources to help the Black community. Most crime is facilitated by the dominant society in the Black communities. You see? And they ignore local demographics in the area so they can really sound more sensationalized. When he said most citizens in DC are Black, isn't it like what, over 40%? I don't think that's the majority, but again, these are dog whistles that they're using. These are dog whistles, and again, they're trying to deploy the National Guard, despite all across the board, it's showing that there are low crime rates out there. So they're just doing the I'm white and I say so, just repetitive repeating. And if you just keep repeating it, that will make it true. If you keep repeating something, they said, okay, just keep on repeating it. It'll become reality sooner or later. And DC, violent crime is at a reported historic low. But like I said, Trump administration said, nope, there's some corruption in the data collecting. So we're going to do a probe to get somebody to look over the real data, because we say crime is higher, which it's not. Yeah. And they're trying to do the whole racist savior narrative. Yeah. See, that whole thing about going in and helping the Black community, these people have tried to dismantle Black access to housing, education, justice, and everything. So now they want to present themselves as a protector. So that's just cynical manipulation, and they do these dog whistles. They get out here, they use this coded racial language, just keep saying Black and crime, and rapes and robberies and all of this stuff. And he kept using, again, Stephen Miller just kept using the term communist. Yeah, we got to get these white, old, elderly liberals. We got to get all of these communists out of here. There's communists. Family, that they're going back to the old Jim Crow tactics. That's what they used to do during Jim Crow, during the Cold War. Communists, whenever you hear that word, understand what they're really trying to say. That's a dog whistle. They know good and well ain't nobody no damn communist. But that's a term that they used to use on a lot of Black activists. Communist is basically a little code word that they try to use to make you seem like you're un-American. You understand? The term communist, that's been used to discredit Black activists, Black leaders, anybody who pushed for like a radical systemic change. Calling like civil rights activism communism, that implies that you demanding equality and justice and protection for Black people, that's some kind of foreign subversive entity behind it. It's dangerous to American values. So that frames Black empowerment as a threat, rather a demand for fairness. So people like Paul Robeson, people who spoke out against Jim Crow racism, they were, hey, that's just a communist. Remember, they used to call Dr. King that all the time. They used to call Dr. King a communist all the time. And also that communist label implying that you're part of some kind of foreign entity or you're being manipulated by some foreign hostile entity. That's used to justify surveillance, harassment, and violence against Black people, like during the COINTELPRO era, which we're still in COINTELPRO, is just more advanced. The FBI, we know they would always use communists to justify illegal wiretaps, infiltration, neutralization of Black leaders and organizations, like the Black Panthers and many, many others. So that label gave law enforcement an excuse to criminalize Black activism under the guise of national security. You see, watch the words they use when they're talking about National Guard and communism, National Guard and communism. See, they're not saying these words randomly. Communism means foreign threat. National Guard, okay, yeah, we need the National Guard to neutralize this foreign threat. You see? And they always use these little smear tactics to kind of isolate Black movements from any other allies that might be there, which we don't, we're on our own anyway. But when they use communists, that's a deliberate tactic, really, to not get white people involved, any white moderates or any kind of white liberals or whoever who might want to show some kind of sympathy or support for Black causes. That scares the white people. See, that suggests that any collaboration with Black activists, people like that, you're aligning with America's enemies. So they use those terms to scare liberal white people. And it just implies that there's a loyalty to a foreign agenda. That's why when we start talking about reparations, the Democrats do the same thing too. This is why I'm not making this a partisan issue, because the Republicans and the Democrats do the same thing. Remember, the Democrats was doing the same thing. They just worded it a different way. What did the Democrats do when we were telling the Democrats, hey, we'll vote for you, but you're going to have to give us some tangibles. Y'all got to give us reparations. Y'all got to give us tangibles in order for us to vote for you. What did they do? They start talking about, well, you guys are controlled by Russian bots. Russian bots was another updated term for communist. That's all it is. And those were the liberals doing that, remember? The Democrats were doing that. Russian bots, that's another code word for communist. But they know not to say communist. I'm talking about the Democrats, because you will sound too much like the alt-right, the far-right people. So they just revamped the word. But that's what it is. Communists, and back in the 60s and 50s and all of that, when you talked about communists, it was Russia. You're talking about Russia, because there was a Cold War going on. So the Russia and the US was, kind of going back and forth, beefing and dissing each other and all of that. So they would always make up stuff about somebody being secretly funded by Russians. Is Russian communists secretly funding these Black movements? Or there's Russian Jews doing it. They always do that. It's the Russian funding. And even the white supremacists who call up now, they start talking about, yeah, you Blacks are funded by Jews. They'll say that out of nowhere. Or you're locked in with the Jews. Remember, we had a white supremacist who crashed out a week or so ago. And he kept throwing that Jew thing where we're controlled by a secret cabal of Jews. You see? So we got to watch the words there. But the thing is, what they do, they conflate disorder and criminality with us. And communism is conflated with disorder and criminality. The term communist, they always tie it to accusations of rioting, anti-police behavior, any type of organized Black protest. So that allowed the state to basically equate Black resistance with chaos, rebellion, illegitimacy, and that justifies militarized crackdowns. You see? And again, they still use those terms now. The name of the game is to shut down any racial justice movement that puts white supremacy on the hot seat. See, a lot of these modern suspected white supremacists like Stephen Miller, they revive that communist dog whistle by describing any Black progressive movements or any justice reform as somehow foreign Marxists or something like that. It's a foreign threat to the status quo. And we got to really understand some of the other little dog whistles that they use about crime. Miller said something about, yeah, there's a lot of rapes and robberies and murders and gangs and all types of criminality in DC, and we're going to go in and dismantle those networks. He said that specifically. He said he's going to dismantle those networks. Here is the thing. There are no networks of large-scale organized crime in Black society. See, he said that for a reason, and he knew that was cap. This is why, and I said this the other day, the police and the federal guards and all those people running around DC, they're just kind of running around like Keystone cops. They don't really know what to do because there are no crime networks. There are not these big, organized, centralized crime networks with Black people. It don't exist. You understand? It doesn't exist. There's no central crime networks. There's no equivalent to organized white collar crimes or Asian mafia crimes or Hispanic cartels, Italian mafia, Irish mafia, Jewish mafia. There's no equivalent, ladies and gentlemen. Now, it's very interesting that they got the National Guard talking about they're going to go and target these um, non-existent Black criminal networks when you have real ones from other people in the dominant society out here. You have several Asian mafias that operate over here and bring in all types of illegal entities and elements over here. You still got the Italian mafia. You still got parts of the Irish mafia. You still got you definitely got Hispanic cartels. But no, you're going to put all your resources talking about non-existent Black organized crime networks. Families don't exist because if they did, they would name them already. You notice that? If there was something like the Medellin cartel or the um what's that the Gotti family, whatever, there were some things like that in Black society, they would name them and it would have been busted up already. You know, we're already over police. These folks don't let us organize enough to get a big crime network. By the time 6 Negroes get together, they're gonna get busted for something. They up to something. Let's stop them. We're over police. We don't even get a chance to organize no large scale criminal networks. It just takes 6 of us getting together, and that's enough. You understand? So don't let people fool you with that. We have individual crimes, in every community, individuals, they commit crime, but to claim that Black America has networks that institutionalize rape and drug dealing and killing, that's dishonest. That's just not true. And Black neighborhoods, they experience street level crime, but that's by poverty and neglect. There's not no syndicate systems like cartels or corporations. Even the Bloods and Crips ain't that organized. Bloods and Crips are really fragmented sets. It's different fragmented sets all over the place, but it's not an organized, centralized network of people. Real organized networks are structural. It's a group of people organizing a system where they have certain levels in the rape networks in Black society. Now you have sex trafficking rings and pedo rings in white society. You have white organizations like NAMLA that's been doing questionable things with boys for years. They're not going after these organizations. You see, so this is racial targeting. I'm just showing the hypocrisy here. I'm showing the hypocrisy here. Even with drug trafficking in Black communities, the drugs are imported from other places by other people. It's not invented. We don't create any. Even my friend Freeway Rick was involved in that, but that was a bigger play. He was a low-level pawn in a way bigger scheme. That was the CIA and the Contras and the Colombians and all of them working, funneling money over here. So that was a real big play. But the finger gets pointed at Freeway Rick and people like him. They point at the street level dudes, but the supply chain, the importation, and the infrastructure all of the things that's outside of Black control, that magically gets ignored. Yeah. And the thing is, look, Black people, we're already over policed, but we're underprotected. You understand? If all these vast networks existed, like I said, they would have been dismantled a long time ago. We are the most heavily surveilled and policed people in the United States. They watch everything we do. Yeah. And the fact that law enforcement, they hadn't produced any evidence of no systematic rape rings or big cartels, that proves it's fiction. I'm telling you, if it existed, they would have been out here running on that, propping that up. That's why when Black folks, when they give us RICO charges, it's always one person. Yeah. When they get a RICO charge on a Black person, it's one person for some bullshit. It's like with Diddy, R. Kelly. You're going to have a one-person RICO where one person gets hemmed up. Or they got to try to make a record label a RICO, just like they did with Young Thug. They tried to make their record label an organized crime entity, and that failed. Thank goodness it failed. Guilty. Thank goodness it failed. You see? It just doesn't exist. So we got to really understand the game, understand these dog whistle strategies that they use, how they overly try to criminalize us, and we got to stop letting them do that. I keep telling people, stop letting them use that word Black crime. Ain't no damn Black crime. There is no Black crime, ladies and gentlemen. These people are not doing anything that the Black community is co-signing. So again, if somebody goes and robs a liquor store, he happens to be Black, what the hell does that have to do with any other Black person? I want you to put your thinking caps on. If this guy, Mr. Dusty or whoever he is, some dusty fool decides to go rob a liquor store, that him robbing that liquor store don't benefit me. He's not going to share the damn money with me. I don't know him. I don't co-sign that, nor does any other Black person. So how in the hell is it Black crime? That's just some dusty dude who wanted to rob a liquor store. That has nothing to do with the rest of Black society. You understand? Y'all got to look at it from that perspective. We're not co-signing that. That wasn't part of some organized network. That was some fool who decided one day to go do something stupid, something that I would never do. And certain street dudes who are semi-organized, some of the street hustlers who are semi-organized, who organize in a sense where they just have an understanding about territory. That's what I mean. Cats just kind of understand different boundaries and they know not to impose on different territories, so they get somewhat of an understanding. But it's still not an organized structural entity like that. But even the street dudes, they don't like all of the carjackings and the shootings and the robberies. They don't like that because it makes the block hot. When you do something stupid like that, cats can't make no money. So everybody looks down on that. Even the street dudes look down on dumbass behavior. Got nothing to do with Black at all. So we got to understand the words. Words are very, very important. Should I get some calls? Should I get some of the family in here? Because we are a lot of folks in here. Let me get my brother Twizzle in here. Brother Twizzle, hop on in, brother. Brother Twizzle from the town.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I love how you just laid that out there. Because one thing for sure, two things for certain. One thing about the street code was the original Black American code. Because one, we always had a dude that was prominent in the streets and he laid the law out and everybody had to answer to him.
Yeah.
But back in the 80s, when they started giving out those drug crimes, those drug lords and the RICOs, that's when they kind of killed all that. But it's funny on how you said with the RICOs on how we Black people, we can get a RICO just by organizing a party.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's how they come for us, especially out here on the West Coast from that old school D game 2 or 3 of us can't hang together, because if we do, we get a conspiracy. We get a conspiracy that we're conspiring to set up an organization to plot a crime or to do all this stuff that we don't have nothing against. And this just goes back to what you said on how we Black Americans are heavily policed, because I know for sure the majority of the laws in Oakland was meant for Black Americans, because each time they'll make a law, we'll figure out on how to circumvent that law and avoid that law, and they'll come up with that law. They'll come up with another law to go against that law. So hey, I just want to land my plane and just I'm gonna say like this. Do you remember the asset forfeiture?
Oh
That's
yeah.
what a lot of that was about, because when a lot of Black men started making a way, they got mad about that. So they started coming with the asset forfeiture thing. It was mainly for us. It wasn't for the mafia or the RICO. It was mainly for Black Americans who was making a way about a poverty and out of the game, and they made a way and they got some. So the federal government came up with a law to take their shit. So I land my plane, D, and thank you, bud. Thank you for having me up.
No doubt, no doubt. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, they do that asset forfeiture for Black so-called criminals, but they don't do that for white ones. What's this white guy? He's on social media too. He's a goofy ass white boy. His dad was a big scammer. His dad was a big scammer. I forgot the dude's dad's name, but his dad scammed a bunch of money, went to prison, but the dad put that stolen money in a trust. He put it in some kind of trust and cleaned the money up. And then the trust fund went to the sons. So the sons be all up on social media, flossing and fronting with private jets. They go around acting like there's some real big ballers and hustlers and big old players. And I used to go back and forth clowning them because they used to get mad at me for calling out white supremacy. So they would call me a race baiter and all that. And I would get on this bumper. But what's the guy's name? Bizarrian or something. I forgot. He's a little short, little steroid looking, alt-right looking dude who tries to act tough, but he's like a little punk ass. But again, they were getting that ill-gotten trust fund money and just balling out with it. Yeah, they don't let us do that. Nick, what's up, Nick?
What's happening, Reed? What's going on with you, brother? You good?
I am good, man. How are you?
Man, I'm cooling. Just wanted to say real quick, had a chance to stop by the museum earlier today with my kids, yo. I told you I was going to do it.
Oh, cool. What time did
Yeah,
you,
we had a good time.
What time did you go up there?
Just right afternoon we did.
Okay. Okay. You see my assistant, Ari was up there, right?
Yeah, man, it was cool. I brought the kids up there. I was just talking to them about some of the exhibits. You know, they was real in love with the pirate dude.
Oh yeah.
You know, it was real cool experience, man, for them. And you know, we got some T-shirts and all that. You know, I heard a tether talking the other night about how the museum didn't have no artifacts, and I was like, yo, this shit has mad artifacts up in here.
Yeah, it does. Yes, indeed. Man, I appreciate you coming through, brother. Thank you so much, and thank you for your support, brother. Yeah, man, we got plenty of artifacts, but tethers are gonna hate the museum. That our museum really, it tears the soul of tethers up, because it was really tethers hating on it. Even before we got it, they were hating on it. They're just going to hate on it no matter what. The museum really messes with tethers. They're the main haters of it, because the tethers think our museum makes them look bad because we got something organized and put together in such a short time, and we didn't run around licking white people's asses to do it. And they are always, anytime they get something going, they got to go find a white ass to kiss. They can't really, or they don't, I can't say they can't, they just don't really organize enough in their homelands in order to build something like that. There's a bunch of them sitting around waiting on white folks, waiting on Sally Struthers to come on through, talking about opportunities and all this, and they can't build nothing because it's too fractured, it's too tribal. And when we do it, when we start organizing and getting stuff done just like that, using that foundational Black American spirit that we have, we always know how to get it out the mud. That's been our whole existence. We know we can't depend on the dominant society. That's what we do. Because see, what they like to do, they like to themselves that we get everything popping over here. We're doing good because white folks felt a certain way and white folks graced us with so many good things. That's what they tell themselves. They love telling themselves that. And they like projecting that onto us. We've gotten everything out of the mud. Everything. We had to get it on our own. We had to make it hot so that the dominant society would want to be a part of it. When they segregated baseball, we had the Negro Leagues. The Negro Leagues was actually more popping than the major leagues. They were making money hand over fist in the Negro Leagues. Not only were the teams making money, you had outside entities associated with the Negro Leagues, like the medical industry within Black society to take care of the players. That made money. Black doctors, Black hospitals, the Black press made money. Black restaurants made money. When they would go to different towns, the Black hotels would make money. So we had a cottage industry. Plus, not only did we get all the Black dollars, white people wanted to come see the good Black players. See, let's keep it a buck. A lot of white people want to see the real deal. A lot of white people want to see some authenticity. They knew where the good players were. So white people would go show up to those Negro League games. So Black folks are getting the Black dollars and the white dollars. That's what made the major league say, hey, wait a minute now. We better get in front of this. We need to get in front of this. See, when we start doing something and making a lot of money, the dominant society, well, they got to get in front of it because they know that it can become a power move thing. They know we make too much money, we start taking over, just like with our music genres. When our music genres get too popular and we're selling them out the trunk and we got chitlin circuit artists going around during the Jim Crow era, touring off some of their songs, they're like, wait a minute, hold on, because now white people are showing up to the juke joint. Just like in the movie Sinners. When Black artists are performing, white folks want to go see them now. They want to see, they want the real deal. So then they got to get in front of that. You can't have white women running around here to the juke joints, going down here to the colored side of town to see all that good talent. So they would have to slowly integrate some of those people in. But I want y'all to go look at something. I'm gonna give y'all an example. I'm in LA. Our Black hub back in the day was Central Avenue in Los Angeles. That was our Black hub. There was so many Black businesses, Black theaters, Black nightclubs on Central Avenue. That was the spot. Now, later on, they busted Central Avenue up because they ran the 110 freeway parallel to Central Avenue. So that just gutted all of the businesses over there, which is what they've done to all areas. But before they put that freeway there, Central Avenue was the hub of Black Los Angeles. There's pictures of white celebrities back in the 50s going down, hanging out in Black clubs. Go look up this picture of Marilyn Monroe. Have y'all seen this picture? It's a picture of Marilyn Monroe at one of these Black clubs at a table with a brother. She's down at some club in the hood. This was in the 1950s. And the brother has a look on his face like he's smashed. But y'all go look up that picture. Look up Marilyn Monroe at a club with a Black guy. She's at a table somewhere. This was on Central Avenue. I forgot the name of the club, but it was very popular that a lot of white celebrities would go down to Central Avenue because that's where the good music was. That's where the good food was. That's where everything was popping. Everything was popping down there. Yeah. So understand that, but look that picture up. Look up Marilyn Monroe, the Black guy at a club. Shit, and I'm looking it up. Hold on. She's at a club. She's at a table with this dude. Y'all Google it. You'll see it. It'll pop up. It'll pop up. So that was a thing. Winter Soldier. Hop on, Winter Soldier.
Yo, Tariq, you were talking about Dan Bilzerian.
Yeah.
His dad got that money from Jordan Belfort with that Wolf of Wall Street. Because
Right.
you said a few years ago, and I started looking it up because I remember the movie. And you're right, that the money got weird. They never found their money.
Right,
You
right.
know what I'm
And
saying? They never found it.
yeah, and then they start putting it in trust and all of that. Now the sons are balling out, you know. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because I called him when he was training with all the Navy SEALs. I guess he
yeah.
got scared or something. Then he called you out. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. He would try to talk crap to me. I'm like, you old trust fund ass nigga, the hell out of here. Man, so what's
Yeah.
going on with you, soldier?
Nothing much. I appreciate that exhibit you had with that pirate Lauren too. That's his name.
Yes, yes.
I went to the museum 2 years ago
Oh,
and I
cool.
saw
Did you go
what's
to
up.
one of our events? Just went just on in the daytime.
No, I had this event like in the Mojave Desert, and so then I decided to come through. And you
No,
know I came through.
did we have an event? What did you come when we were having an event at the museum? Or it was just a regular day.
It was just a regular day. It
Okay,
was spur of the moment.
okay,
I forgot all about it.
okay. Cool,
And
cool.
I liked it a lot. It was cool. I tried to look for Bass Reeves' pistol, but his great niece sold it to the U.S. I mean, gave it to the U.S. Marshal Service.
Oh wow, wow. Yeah, I gotta get some more artifacts like that too, because that's why I want to go to Oklahoma. I want to get a bunch of stuff from Oklahoma and bring it and do a big exhibit with the museum. But man, I appreciate you though, man. Shout out to you, Winter Soldier. Much respect to you.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Y'all got to come through. We'll be back open Saturday. We'll be back open Saturday. So y'all come on down to the museum on Saturday and enjoy it. The kids love it. You'll enjoy it. Come with your family. And I'm gonna probably have my own event in September. We'll probably have an event up there, have food. Because I haven't had my own event up there in a long time because a lot of people have been renting it out in the neighborhood. But people have been asking when are we going to have our event, my event. So we're going to probably do something in September. So I got to get with Dwan and we're going to make something happen. I probably want to get the people at Blue Bird to cater. That's the Crip theme. That's the Crip thing chicken joint out here in LA. But the food is good and they're good folks, man. And you know, anything Black in LA, I'm a super, super supported. Anything Black in LA, I'm right there supporting it and trying to prop them up and make it happen. But I'm gonna let y'all know we're gonna probably have something late September, and I keep everybody posted on that. All right, let me get some more folks in here. What's up, Yoshi? I see you. I see you down there, beloved. Oh, I see you. Y'all raise the hands in here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get them hands raised. Let's see what's on your mind. Nikki the God, I see you. Let's get Jim in the building. Mr. Jim in the building. Jim, hop on in.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Jim. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. What's on your mind, sir?
It goes back to what you said about there being no such thing as black crime.
Yes.
It's because I'm not trying to be funny. And I'm gonna land my plane quick, but I used to watch forensic files, right?
Yeah.
And forensic and all it's just white people killing each other over life insurance. That's all. That's all it is. For it's 20 years worth of white people killing each other over life insurance, and they never equate that to white on white crime.
Right.
It's there, it's verifiable, and it's all. As soon as you hear she took out a life insurance policy, well, there you go. You know what I'm saying?
That's
I'm
very
a lamb.
thank you.
Huh?
That's very common. They do it with their spouses. They even do it with their kids. Don't let it be an adopted kid. Whoa. Yeah, they get an adopted kid, put a life insurance policy on it, and damn, that kid is out of here. Now the kid, there was a white couple who did that. They adopted some black child down in Tennessee some years ago, and then left the child in a car, and the child suffocated in the car, and they acted like, oh my God, it was an accident. And then they had an insurance policy on the baby. And then you never heard about the story again. They've been doing little stuff like that. But see, that don't get chopped up as white crime. See, when they do crimes, they are always lone wolves. They always promote it as them being a damn lone wolf. Even though there's mass shootings all the time with people in the dominant white society. Oh, it was a lone wolf or it was self-defense. But with us, if some dusty ass teenager goes steal a car, all of a sudden, oh, the problem is fatherlessness in the Black community. What? I'm a father. What do I got to do with that dusty nigga stealing the car? Now, I'm getting blamed. I'm a Black father. The hell I got to do with him? Him stealing that car didn't help me. The hell I got to do with us? No, we got to stop letting people do that. You got to call that stuff out. Like I said, there's no Black crime. There's no networks of Black crime. With the drugs are engineered and the drugs are imported by others. When they had heroin, that was coming in from other groups. Cocaine coming in from other groups. None of that stuff is manufactured here. Even meth, we don't manufacture no damn meth. White people do that. The fentanyl and all that, that comes from the Asians. Yeah, they leave all of that out. There's a dude who's the Asian mafia kingpin. They said this dude had more money than El Chapo and Pablo Escobar, because Pablo Escobar was making billions. But the Asian Pablo Escobar, forgot his name, and they just caught him somewhere a few years back. And they you never know who he is. They don't play his name up in the media. They don't put his name up there in the media. This dude was making more money than El Chapo and Pablo Escobar in the Asian underworld crime rings. I've been telling people for years Asians were the plug. When I was in the streets, I used to deal with them. That's the real damn plug. They're never criminalized. And they got the plug on everything. Man, I'm telling you, everything. You go through the Asians. People think because of the movies, you go meet with you do a deal with some damn Costa Rican dude. And no, nigga. No. The Asians, dude, especially out here in LA, they got all those ships coming in at them ports. The Hispanics ain't got that. They ain't got them shipping connections like that. The Asians do. They got all them connections at the ports, and they got all the connections at the import-export corporations out here. So they've always been the plug, but they are never criminalized. Never. You understand? Come on, Twizzle want to get back in. Let me get my brother Twizzle back. Brother Twizz, hop on in, brother.
Hey man, I'm sorry to chop on twice tonight, but you are 100% correct. Because I remember up here, it was up here the Asians got a lock on the game. They got a lock on the weed game. Not only that, and they don't want to talk about it, but they had a lock on the meth game because they had their own secret recipe for it. And one thing about these Asians, they don't do no business. They will sell you something, but they won't network with you. And what happened was one Asian, he got hooked on the meth and started hanging with one of these inbreds up here, and he taught them the recipe for it. So ever since then, they cut them out. But what you're saying is 100% correct, because I remember in the 90s, it was this Vietnamese or Asian general or all the heroin distribution throughout half the world. And he told America, if you give me $1 billion, I won't send no heroin over there to you. I remember this. I remember this. You can Google it. I think it was in the 90s, and it tripped me out because he was laughing and he didn't give a f- and he said he told the president, come for me. You know what I'm saying? And he was a general. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And that's people think that I just want to say this, and I'm gonna land my plane. People think these Asians are innocent.
Yeah.
I said when I first came on this app that when we come to this immigration, it's not the Mexicans that we have to worry about. It's the that are coming over here eating dogs and cats that we have to worry about. And I land my plane, T.
Yeah, and also up there in the Bay, Twiz, it was a lot of them Asians behind them bipping crews who was bipping them cars up there too. I was hearing
They the Kia boys. They the Kia boys.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And not only that, you got to understand, we got a lot of these motherfuckers who came up here running these liquor stores, these Asian, I mean, the Arabs and the is out here. Not only that, the number one stolen car up here right now is an Infiniti. If you have an Infiniti Q something, what they would do, they will go through the sunroof and steal your shit. Instead of bipping the side windows, that's how they start them side shows. So it's these Asians and these Muslims that's doing all the dirt, plus these immigrant Mexicans, because they too busy trying to copy off what we were doing in the 80s, and they want to be a part of it. And since they're immigrants, they don't have the harsh penalties that we have to pay. And I'm gonna say this, and once again, I'm gonna land my plane. I'm very passionate about this immigrant shit. 21, when acting like they gonna turn right, so I gun it, they turn left, cut me off, broke my jaw, and I went down, damn near lost my life. So I'm very passionate about this illegal immigration shit and about them giving these license, and they can't even speak English, so they can't even read the rules of the road. You know what I'm saying? So I land my plane, man. Y'all have a good night.
Man, respect to you, brother.
I'm no longer mercy. I'm no longer mercy. I'm no longer mercy. I'm no longer mercy, 'cause I got my real work on. I'm no longer mercy, 'cause I got my real work on. I'm no longer mercy, 'cause I got my real work on. I'm no longer mercy.
Oh my god, these damn root work commercials are fucking hilarious. Alright, yeah, so there's no such thing as black crime, but they're gonna keep running with that narrative. Oh, so much black on black crime to try to justify this madness. Big balls being attacked and carjacked, even though it didn't really happen like that. But these white supremacists, they're gonna pull out all the stops, no matter what side of the aisle they're on. That's right, man. 285. So, Phil's gonna give us an update on the DC police and the feds are violating the rights of Black Americans. Lawsuits are coming.
Now, when Trump and the Republicans, especially Stephen Miller, we talked about him last night, thought that they was going to have ICE show up, they all just taking out and breaking out in the run. That didn't happen. They sent the National Guard out there. Brothers and sisters are out there clowning them. You hear me? Because we don't take them serious. You know why we don't take them serious? Because we've been there, seen this story, and it's embarrassing beyond which for Trump and them. But I want you to go ahead and watch these clips out of DC about how brothers and sisters just sitting up here just laughing.
It's a TikTok though. Hey, I don't know about in y'all city, but this how they pull up in our city on a nigga dick. These all police cars, y'all. Look, that's 3, 4, 5, 6.
That was the big line. That's why I said. Y'all thought I was just capping. They
always in the back right here, y'all. They always in the back. Bubba, look at Bubba. Hey, Bubba. Little buddy. All night. You got the camera in my mouth. You got the light in my face. What the fuck? We can do this shit all night long. All night. All night. Nah, you just ugly as shit. Why you crying? Why you crying? What's wrong? Well, I ain't do nothing to you. Why you crying? Why you crying? Look at him. Go ahead. Oh, all right. We got you, McGrew.
Gentlemen, up on the sidewalk, please. You got the
I got you, McGrew. I got you, McGrew. I'm just fucking with your swag, white shirt. I'm fucking with your swag. Them other niggas be looking all, you know what I'm saying? All stuck up and shit. I'm fucking with your swag. Oh, nah, you gotta get in that gym, twin. That shit ain't nothing. Oh, nah. You gotta get right, twin. And your ponytail little as shit. And you jive flat in the back. Hold, twin. You ain't nothing. You jive flat in the back. Oh, twin. Get right. Oh, you gotta get right, twin. You gotta do some squats, twin. Yeah, you gotta do some squats, twin. You jive flat as shit. Yeah, go ahead, man. Yeah, I'm gonna see y'all later, man. Y'all have a nice day, man. Enjoy the rest of y'all day, man. Go ahead, man. I'm gonna see y'all later, man. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all day, man. Go ahead. Where the rest of them at? See y'all later, man. Enjoy the rest of your day, bro. Suck it in. Damn, twin, that what you on? Oh, nah, twin, that's a mean joke.
You trying to run a nigga dick over?
Damn. You mad because I told your man his little butt little as shit? You was a bitch.
Nobody right here. It's nobody in the car. How are y'all just going to people's cars? How are y'all just going to people's cars?
How you going to somebody?
Nobody was over here by this car. Nobody was in the car. I got it. I got the key. I got the key. They used the little airbag thing because that's how they went in my car on M Street, and they not supposed to do that. It was nobody over here, nobody in the car, none of that. So how y'all just going to people's cars?
Close that door.
Y'all not supposed to just go in people's cars. Nobody was in the car. Nobody was leaning on it. None of that.
Hold on, why y'all?
No, because why are y'all going in the car?
Back
up, y'all. Back up, y'all. Okay, back up.
Back up.
Okay, don't touch me.
Back up.
Okay, don't push me because we didn't touch y'all. Don't push me because we didn't touch y'all. We did not touch y'all. We're trying to figure out why are you guys are going in the car. Nobody touched him, and he's touching people, pushing people.
So as you can see, that lawyers, if they look at some of these videos, they are rubbing their hands together like Birdman. They doing this here by them lawsuits because them cops going in their cars without no search warrant. See, they just didn't ask the right question. They say, hey, where's your search warrant to do that? You got to have a search warrant. You can't just go in our vehicles like that. And anything you find in there, 'cause that's the thing. If they don't have a search warrant and they find anything in your car, any kind of evidence, it's not admissible. But they didn't have a search warrant. No, the cop can't just walk up to your cars and go in them. That's violating all kind of rights, right? And that video, that last video was the one that really got with me. Is that one? Like, so I guess we just gonna be violating people's rights, and they just trying to look for something to lock black people up on. You understand? Well, here's the thing. Contrary to white supremacist belief, we're not criminals. That's why you're not finding anything. Even though you're breaking into black people's cars, you're not finding anything because we're not out here committing crime. I mean, among you, each other, you sit up here and say, oh, these black people out here committing crimes or whatever. Like, no, the majority of black people aren't committing crimes. We got some that's committing crime, but every community got people that commit crime. Now, the other brothers laughing at them police, you know, talking to them crazy. Why? Because nobody's committing crime. And so they're like, man, like, look, I'm going to go ahead and just roast these people. For what? Like, they have no reason to even be out here. None. And it's extremely sad and ridiculous how black people, you know, got to be dealing with this. But see, you know, we deal with these issues and just take it with a smile. And we know at the end of the day, we always going to outlast them. Always. They can never keep up that oppression like that. It's too costly, and it just don't even look good for optics. And then once Trump get his little 30 days, whatever he wants to do, then he gonna try to move on to something else to distract off of everything but them doggone Epstein files. He don't want to talk about them Epstein files, not at all. And all the people that support him talking about MAGA or whatever, well, where's some Epstein files? There's not no rampant crime in DC. Because it was so-called rampant crime in D.C., then where is it at? Where is it? Because I don't see it. I don't see nothing going on in D.C. like that. The last time I was in D.C., everybody was living their life. Brothers and sisters in the community. Y'all put all this money into police budgets and y'all stop crime? How is it that all the billions of dollars y'all give police departments and we shouldn't have no crime? You shouldn't take federal anything. No city should have crime based on the billions the police department get. So where is the money going? And have y'all noticed they never talked about doing a Doge to these police departments? Have y'all noticed that? Find out where all the money going. If they're giving billions of dollars to the police department, where is it going? Where is it going? Because clearly it's not going to crime fighting because you got crime in the city, right? So where the money going? I want you to notice that they did not do a Doge to police departments or even the military either to figure out where that money going. Because there's a lot of corruption in all this stuff. They just keep saying, "Oh, it's crime, crime, crime. Give us another $1 billion," and then the crime nothing happens with the crime. And they say, "Oh, well, crime is going down not because of the police. It's going down because people just choosing not to do it." The police have never been there to stop crime. That's why you can't sue them if a crime happened to you. Because they legally not there to protect you. But yet our tax dollars got to keep going to them. That's why brothers and them laughing at y'all joke. Because you're not doing anything, but just being in the way. But yeah, brothers and sisters, they violating all kind of rights. And y'all in DC, please get y'all lawyer together. Get y'all some lawyers and start suing these people for violating your rights. Sue them. Because they got to pay. Now, you may have a little pushback while Trump's in office, but you better believe whoever the next president going to be, you better get your bag. Trust me. Save them videos. Because they ain't had no search warrant. They violated all kind of rights. They can't have what they call illegal search and seizure. They can't do that. They got to have a search warrant signed by a judge to go do that. They can't just say, well, give us a search warrant to go search all the parking lot. No. That's not the way that works. They have to say, we've been surveilling this particular car and we want to search it. So give us a search warrant because of this evidence. They can't just go search everybody's car. That's not the way it works. So please, y'all, get y'all some lawyers. Because they violating so many of y'all rights right now. It's crazy. And I'll be suing that police department, every department that's out there searching. I'll sue and get your bag. I don't know. Sure, I'm surprised Benjamin Crump is not rubbing his hand together right now. All the rights are being violated in D.C. But y'all, please record what these police are doing. Because there'll be evidence in court that they cannot deny.
That's right, Uncle Phil. Sue them mugs. Sue them. Like Uncle Phil said, get your lawyers together if you're in D.C., especially in Southeast. Sue these mugs for your violations of your civil rights. Like, this is ridiculous. These mugs is running up in people's houses, running up in black people's cars, searching without warrants. They need to have a search warrant. And like he said, if they don't have a search warrant and they find something, then it's going to be admissible in court. So moving along, the dump is attacking Black history. CNN debate on the race of slavery from museums, from Bakari sellouts. Oh my God. So I guess Bakari sellouts was on Abby Phillips on CNN, and they got into it with suspected white supremacists about Trump attacks on Black history. Fair use. Fair freaking use.
table by arguing in part that slavery in America can't just be blamed on one race, and that museums put too much focus on the role of white people who participated in that terrible institution. And now tonight, that same argument is being one of the reasons for his crackdown on Smithsonian museums is, quote, everything discussed is how bad slavery was. What we try to do on this program is create a platform for discussion and debate that reflects the very real differences that exist in this country. It's what echo chambers in our society fail to do, frankly. But on this topic, it's important to say objectively, slavery was indeed bad. It was evil, the nation's original sin. And it is impossible to understand the true history of this country without fully grappling with slavery's impact. Simply because of their birthplace and the color of their skin, the bodies and spirits of Black men, women, and children were exploited for profit and power. They were forced onto ships, bound by shackles and collars that ripped off their skin. One older man described it as iron entering our souls. Some chose to jump into the waters infested with sharks rather than feel that iron. Now, once they arrived on this very soil, they were forced to work by way of the whip, despite being starved, sleep deprived, threatened, tortured, physically and psychologically. They were auctioned off, humiliated, fearful, and separated from their families and their children. Black women and girls were raped and sexually assaulted. Many were brutally murdered and mutilated. Now, this endured for decades, centuries. And even in the places where slavery was not legal, institutions from our banks to universities were built on enslaved labor in both the North and in the South. And for many of the white Americans who did not personally own slaves, they benefited from a caste system that concentrated wealth and political power in their hands. So when we acknowledge the existence of Black people who operated George Washington's Mount Vernon or the Black hands that built the White House, we are acknowledging the existence, the perseverance, and the contributions of the souls that white supremacy sought to erase. Those people built families, they developed a culture, they were the keepers of the faith, cultivators of community. And they are the ones who deserve credit for forcing America to rid itself of the stain of slavery. Now, all of this information, these stories are from the Smithsonian's African American History Museum. And I share this not as a lecture for you, but as a lesson. America, the superpower, is largely possible only because of the superpowers of people who went lifetimes without the same rights of generations who were boosted from their backs. True history should include everything. Yes, the evils and the horrors too. And museums are supposed to be places that protect those stories, the images, the lessons, the very things that inform so much of our current state of our republic, from racism to poverty. No matter how painful, or in the president's words, how horrible the lesson. Now, just listen to one formerly enslaved man describe what slavery is like in his own words.
You know what I'd rather do? If I thought that I'd ever be a slave again, I'd take a gun and just end it all right away. Because you're nothing but a dog. You're not a thing but a dog.
We are here in the studio with our panel, Leah Wright-Rigueur. I was actually surprised to see President Trump basically saying the quiet part out loud, that this review of the Smithsonian is not about even just something vague about reviewing history to make sure that it's fair. He wants to make it so that it talks less about slavery. What does that say to you?
Well, I think it's an effort. It's part of a larger effort to both sanewash and whitewash American history, and essentially erase all of the parts and disappear all of the parts that make Americans, that make President Trump uncomfortable, that feel distasteful, that are a reflection of the actual real and horrific parts of our history. And I find it a little ironic. You know, earlier today, as I was listening to some of the commentary, my first thought was, wait a second. I wonder if the president has actually ever visited any of the Smithsonian museums. And then I remembered that in 2017, he actually took a tour of the National Museum of African American History and Culture.
Let me just play actually what he said during that tour. Listen to this.
I had the privilege of visiting the National Museum of African American History and Culture right here in Washington, D.C. It's a new, beautiful Smithsonian museum that serves as a shining example of African Americans' incredible contributions to our culture, our society, and our history. It also tells of the great struggle for freedom and equality that prevailed against the sins of slavery and the injustice of discrimination. The work and love of the people who helped create such a masterpiece is a testament to the legacy of so many leaders it honors.
So was it that he didn't believe what he read from the teleprompter as he recorded that video, or what?
You know, I'm really struggling to understand in a lot of ways, particularly given that the tour that he took with director Lonnie Bunch was actually a reflection of really the mastery that and really the care and the patience that historians, that scholars, that curators put into the Museum of African American History and Culture. It is not just about the horrors of slavery, although it tells that very important story. It actually follows this really brilliant model where you move through the museum and it tells the story not just of enslaved Americans in America, but also of the resilience, of the triumph. And in doing so, it tells a story that is very much about democracy and about a quest for democracy and the way that Americans both built this country, but also the story and the narrative of like a truly American experience. And so for the president, I think, to just simply erase that and push that away tells it, particularly after praising it a few years ago, tells us that this is part of a much larger agenda. This is part of a much larger agenda to erase things. And I think the country uses to deal with and is really uncomfortable with.
He said as much by ending this post with, "This country cannot be woke because woke is broke." He says, "We have to have the hottest country in the world, and we want people to talk about it, including our museums." Why is he equating talking about slavery with woke?
Well, look, I think, let me just start this conversation by saying that my personal view is slavery was a reprehensible institution. I agree with your words that it was our original sin. We also fought a war to eradicate it and to get over it as a country. And that was a necessary thing that happened, and a lot of people died, and we did eradicate it, and that's a good thing. I think what he's asking is, in our museums, what defines us? Are we going to be defined by the worst moment or the worst institution or the worst mistake we ever made? Or are we going to be defined by what we've done moving forward to get over it and to become the greatest nation on the earth? My belief is that he wants to look at these museums, not because he wants to do away with the idea that slavery occurred, but that he wants to ask a very simple question. Are we going to present ourselves as being exceptional or not? And I think he believes there is an effort by some to continue to try to define us from our worst moment instead of to try to focus and define us based on our best moments, which started when we eradicated slavery and began to move forward as the light of the world. And so that's what I think.
Museums, that's what makes us an exceptional nation, is because they tell the history and the story of our country, and therefore, you know, these horrible, horrific moments in our history. The original sin, as Abby talked about, when it comes to slavery, has, you know, we of course did eradicate it, but look where we've come today. And I think those museums, like to your point, make America exceptional, and museums all around the world that document atrocities, whether it be, you know, from Nazi Germany to eradicating slavery here in the United States. You have to learn the lessons of the past, and to deny it is to defend it.
I don't think he's denying it. And Bacc may want to comment on this as well. But I think what he wants to ask is a simple question. As we present our history, are we spending most of our time focused on something terrible? Are we going to spend more time as we enter our 250th anniversary focused on what this country has done to improve the lives of every single person who lives here. We are the light of the world for a reason, because we're an
The
improving
question
commodity.
I ask when I hear you say that is, why? I mean, the idea that slavery happened, it's hard to understand what we've overcome if you don't even talk about what it was. You know, I think that kind of waters down the whole.
I don't think anybody is proposing that we ignore that it happened.
I
don't
think
think that's accurate.
I think that the problem is that there are people, and Scott used the term a couple of times, and I don't think it was meant with any type of ill intent, but he said, you know, we got over it. And I think that's the problem. I think that there are a lot of people in this country who believe that for some reason we got over it. I mean, the fact is that American chattel slavery is vastly different than what Jillian Michaels and others talk about when they talk about slavery around the world. I mean, the chattel slavery system that we had was extremely transactional. It was actually codified in law, and it was based upon the color and race, as you so eloquently pointed out in your opening. And so not only when you think about that portion of where we are, 26 of our first 30 Supreme Court justices own slaves. The people who are on our money every single day own slaves. United States presidents, members of the United States Congress own slaves. Lehman Brothers, we're not far from Wall Street, own slaves. Brooks Brothers suits that we wear own slaves. So not only are we talking about the epicenter and the foundation of where our country was built, we have to acknowledge that. But even more importantly, and this is where I believe that Scott and I can find agreement on this issue. Breon and Megan Walker, two of my best friends in the world, their dad was the first African-American SGA president at the University of South Carolina, right? He was an exec at IBM, but he was one of the first, right? We're still talking about first that emerged and stood on those shoulders. I tell the story often about my mom and dad. My mom helped desegregate high schools. In Hamilton High School in Memphis, Tennessee, my dad shot in the Orangeburg Massacre. This is a part of my story. This isn't some faint, distant history. Yeah. And so the reason I bring that up is because I think that American exceptionalism talks about the fact that Black folk help, enslaved folk help build this country for what it is. Mm-hmm. They built Washington, D.C., but all of us are around this table. Abby, myself, all of us, not just Abby and myself, all of us are around this table because of the sacrifices and the blood and the sweat and the tears these people poured in.
I also come back to why the focus so much on slavery when it comes to rewriting history. There's a lot of history that is in these museums, but he's focused on one thing, and that is that there's too much slavery being mentioned in the United States of America. That's very odd, Batia, honestly.
So I want to start by saying I actually agree with everything that's been said, and I loved your opening. And so I offer these comments very humbly because it's an honor to be included in this conversation, which is very solemn. And I think we all understand that, and we are all looking for the common ground here. And so what I'm about to say, I don't mean in any way to negate that tone. But starting around 2011, 2012, sociologists started to notice a shift in white liberal opinion polling to where white progressives became more extreme in their views on race than Black and Hispanic Americans. And they called this, the sociologists called it the Great Awakening. And when they postulated, where did this come from? Why did white progressives suddenly start obsessing over race in a way that was actually far to the left of where Hispanic and Black Americans were on this issue? They found that the media had shifted radically how it talked about these issues. So for example, in 2010, the words white supremacy were mentioned 75 times in the Washington Post and the New York Times, but the Washington Post and the New York Times, and 2,400 times in NPR. The word racism, 4,000 times in 2020. The words white and racial privilege from 2013 to 2019 grew by 1,500% in the New York Times and the Washington Post. And the word slavery itself exponentially skyrocketed as a percentage of words. I'm offering this only to suggest. I understand.
I'm just wondering what do you think is the problem with talking about slavery, white supremacy, etc.
So the point I'm trying to make here, that liberals will say, well, this is a reflection of reality. But of course it isn't. This is a reflection of a newfound obsession that was driven by the media. Well, and that doesn't reflect either the moral evil of these things or the historical accuracy.
I do want to dive into what you mean by that, because you say that you don't think it's a reflection of reality. Based on what?
Well,
Based on
slavery-
the idea that those things don't exist? That
Based
white
on the
supremacy
idea
doesn't
that-
exist, racism doesn't exist, that we shouldn't be talking about
Based
it
on the
anymore?
idea, obviously all things I think are evil, but there's not more slavery now to the tune
Yeah,
of
but I think
but
part of
that's
the
not the
problem,
point, but
100% than
part of the
there
problem,
was
Batia, is that in the
respectfully,
19,
that's
hold on a
not the-
second, Bakari. Part of the problem is that back, you know, not that long ago in the 50s, 60s, even beyond that, when there was actual Jim Crow happening in this country, people were actually treating Black people as second-class citizens. We weren't talking about those things at all.
But in
those words were
2013
virtually never mentioned.
Abby, you don't
so is
think
that
2013
better?
That-
Was
but
it
that-
better
you're missing-
then,
respectfully,
or was
you're
it
missing-
worse?
You
then?
don't
You're
think that
missing the-
2013 is the same as the 1960s,
But you're missing,
right?
respectfully, and I've had this debate
Do
many
you
times.
really think that there's as big a difference
But
between the
but we're missing.
1960s and
I don't.
we're missing
That's
the
not my point. My
Okay.
point is that the use of the language
Mhm.
in present day, or the use of the language back when racism apparent every single day in the streets of America, doesn't reflect really anything except perhaps a better awareness of the reality that we live in. As a,
I think the country was more racist.
That's not.
I didn't say.
Missing the forest for the trees, because what you what you have to realize is that the remnants of slavery that emerged through Black codes, which were enforced by what is modern day police, what you're talking about in Jim Crow, what you're talking about in the civil rights movement, those fights, they weren't even Georgia or in every gave up so that African Americans could in the primary system. When you talk about hearing Eliza Biggs, who actually were the founder for Brown versus the Board of Education, when you're talking about Sarah Mae Fleming, who sat down on a bus before Rosa Parks, you're talking about the foundation of where we are today. And you see those remnants of injustice even as we sit here today. You have a quarter of shame in South Carolina. Scott just was in South Carolina along the I-95 corridor where Black and brown kids go to school. Their heating and air don't work. You have hospitals that are shut down. You have redlining that affect Black people today. You have USDAs, right? The Farm Subsidy Program, which wasn't allocating funds to Black people. So yes, although you might want to say, and one of the most amazing things about Barack Obama was that we believed we were in this post-racial society. We are not. And so my point to you is that every ounce of change that we've ever had in this country has been because Black blood flowed through the streets. You don't have the 64-65 Voting Rights Act without the Edmund Pettus Bridge. You don't have the Voting Rights Act. You don't have Fair Housing Act without King being assassinated. We don't even take the Confederate flag down without 9 people being killed in a church, right? We don't talk about criminal justice reform without a Black man being killed in the streets. And so when we are articulating our views to you about the remnants thereof, I understand your point, that we are not shackled or in bondage like we were in slavery. However, we have never deconstructed the remnants, which still affect us today.
Well, I also want to just add, Batia, but Batia, just as a factual matter, I mean, you're talking about a time period in which there was the first Black president elected in the country.
Mm-hmm.
There was the Mother Emanuel massacre that happened in during his presidency, which was, last I checked, about racism and white supremacy. So there have been moments when we have actually correctly in this country grappled with those very things because they've been put on the agenda by our fellow Americans. So I don't understand the desire to try to avoid that when it's not as if it's gone. I mean, people are literally still killing people in this country because of the color of their skin, and suddenly we should just move past it?
I think we've had more than just moments where we have had massive leaps forward in the way we treat each other in this country. I mean, I agree with Batia. Where we sit today in the 1960s or the 1920s or the 1860s.
I don't think anybody's disputing that.
And it's not even close.
I don't know, but I don't think anybody's disputing that. I think it's just a question of, do we need to just stop talking about it because we're not in Jim Crow anymore?
I don't think anyone's proposing that, but what I do think he is proposing, and I think this is worth discussing, is that as we go into our 250th anniversary, how are we presenting ourselves to the world? Are we presenting ourselves as a country that is obsessed with our worst moment, or are we presenting ourselves as a country that managed to overcome our worst moment and have been improving ever since?
It's not about being obsessed with our worst moment. I mean, again, I think it's an important part. Last year, 17 million people visited the Museum for African American History, History and Culture. And I think that's an important number because part of what they saw was that this was a story about African American resilience. This is a story about community. It is a story about democracy and triumph. But it is also a story about two parts of the same coin that you can't have. And I think this to Bakari's point, that you can't have that story of resilience. You can't have that story of expansive democracy without understanding how it happened and how we got there. You can't erase slavery. Well, it's over and done with, and now we're not going to talk about it.
A quick moment, though, on Donald Trump's role in all of this, because I think that kind of gets glossed over. I mean, the idea that the president is saying that he is going to have his attorneys go through the museums the same way that he did the colleges and the universities is, as far as I can tell, not something that we've seen in this country in a very long time. And it's also something that deserves to be pointed out as not normal.
I think it's not normal, but also, is this a good use of time for the president of the United States to be doing this? I think you saw that clip in 2017 when he was praising the African American History Museum. He was talking about his tour and the visit. I'm not sure what changed from now until then. I'm not aware of other exhibits or other like language being inserted into anything that's being shown at the museum.
What's changed is the backlash on the right.
Yeah,
against anything that has to do with race. And he is leaning into that because that is where his political base is. But we also have a responsibility to the facts and to actual history, not just the version that suits us in this political moment.
I think that the president is throwing stuff against the wall even when he tweets stuff like this. And I think that you have to be cautious about discounting people for their remarks, particularly when you have the president of the United States. But coming from the South where I'm from, you don't have to necessarily read about your history in history books, which is fascinating, because you go to the barbershop and people tell you about when King came to town. I mean, people actually, they slept on jailhouse floors, they smelled the bullets come by. And so you have this griot type of culture. The danger, however, is not with Donald Trump, who's an 80-year-old man. And this is what we haven't tackled. The danger is with people like Dylan Roof, who had as much hate in his heart as Lester Maddox and other individuals during that time period. We have an entire generation who will discount that history. And I prefer, and I think this, kind of to your point, progressives and liberals and even people to the right, particularly now, have gone to this point where we don't want to have the free flow and exchange of ideas, where we cancel people who have ideas that are different from yours. And I think we have to get back to a point of having more education, more books, more museums, more history in those museums, more exchange of ideas, so that we become a more educated country. Because right now, I feel like this country's dumb as hell.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Next for us, a red state is now giving teachers ideology tests to weed out the woke. Here are some of the questions that they're going to be asked. Plus, more Republican governors are sending their own troops to Washington, D.C. tonight to join Trump's takeover of the city. We'll debate that.
Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. The Orange Man is making headlines again, this time for saying that he wants to review the Smithsonian's exhibits because, as he put it, everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, and how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. Some of Trump's administration operatives wrote a letter to the Smithsonian Institute's secretary saying that their goal is to celebrate American exceptionalism, remove divisive or partisan narratives, and restore confidence in our shared cultural institutions. Well, for the record, American slavery was a shared institution. Everybody was involved. People of all colors were there. Black people were being beaten, raped, lynched, and killed, and white people were the ones doing the beating, raping, lynching, and killing. Black people certainly weren't doing that to themselves. And this went on for hundreds of years. And all these other groups, they were also involved. They helped to uphold slavery too. Everyone from the Native Americans to the Mexicans and the Asians and such, all of these people were slave owners. All of these people were slave catchers. All of these people were supporting the peculiar institution. So American slavery was a shared cultural institution. What people resent is when you talk about what part everybody had to play in it. No matter what phony outrage you get from the white media on this issue is, the truth is they're loving it. Donald Trump is bad for democracy, as Molester Moonves said, but he's great for ratings because people are actually engaged with their favorite pretend news channel. He gives the talking heads plenty to talk about, but for anyone with an IQ higher than their shoe size, there's not much thought going on. Now, what is Donald Trump really up to? What's his real game here? He's been in the past praising Black History Month, at least in the past. This year, though, he was reported as wanting to remove Black figures from the Department of Defense's historical commemorations, but then he backed down on that. Donald Trump's racism is real, especially when it comes to Black people. And so is his desire to bury the Epstein Files scandal under a mountain of other headlines, which hopefully have nothing to do with Epstein. Ginning up controversy has also been an effective way for Trump to make the white media look the other way while he barrels through more of his so-called agenda. All of it being done under cover of chaos. At this point, you can't even say that the white media is being played like a fiddle. They're not. They know the orange man's game and they love to play it because it benefits them too. All right, now, what are the chances that Trump is actually able to do any of this? Hard to say right now. The Smithsonian is not an executive branch agency. It's actually a trust that was set up in the 1840s by a Brit, no less, and it's supported by federal funds. So does Donald Trump actually have the ability to control the Smithsonian's exhibits? That's a serious legal question, but as it stands for Donald Trump, it's actually a win-win scenario. If he goes to court and they crush him and show that he doesn't have the authority to curate the Smithsonian's exhibits, well, at the very least, he gave a temporary sugar rush to his base, and they'll look and say, well, at least he tried and he sent a message. On the other hand, if it's litigated in court and a judge actually says, well, he does have the authority to curate the Smithsonian's exhibits, well, then he can look at his base and say, see, I'm getting things done. It's not going to change their lives, but it's not meant to. It's meant to change Trump's life by getting attention off of Epstein. Black history, however, is the real issue here. And why is it that there's not actually a defense against what Trump's attacks are doing? That's because Black history has been under relentless assault by Republican politicians for years now. That's not new. The problem isn't that the GOP is being typically racist. The problem is that Democrats who claim to be so concerned, they are not and have utterly refused to make an issue out of defending Black history being taught in schools or preserved in the public square. Neither the Democrats nor their on-air or online mouthpieces are treating any of this as the political and historical crisis that they claim to want you to think that it is. Instead, they're just twiddling their thumbs about it. Where are the Democrats who are promising to gut every bit of censorious GOP legislation that tries to whitewash history? Where are they at? Where's the Democrats at who are running on a platform of reinforcing the teaching of Black history? If they actually do believe that teaching the history of slavery in America is an important part of the American story, then where are they at to say that we're going to stand up for it no matter what? They call themselves removing it over the GOP. The next time the Democrats are in charge, we're going to reinforce it. Well, they're not there. They're not saying anything. And that inaction tells you everything. While you have the left corner of the white media pointing out that Trump wants to focus on feel-good history for white people, the real question is, why aren't Democrats running on a platform to not only resist these specific policies, but to also promise that they will reinforce and expand the teaching of slavery? You push, we push back harder. Where are they to do that on this issue? Instead, they're just giving the usual tisk-tisk about the orange man's latest performative extremism. Well, that's meaningless. For the last several years, we've seen this in places like Florida, Texas, and Louisiana, the iron triangle of stupid. Democrats just let trash like DeSantis do whatever he wanted, and Democrats did nothing to retaliate or to make reversing these policies a key part of their party platform. And then we have the shills, suck-ups, and sellouts who tell us that we have to vote Democrat because of this. Okay, and what have the Democrats said that they're going to do about any of these anti-Black policies? Donald Trump hasn't removed any exhibits from the Smithsonian or anything, but if he does, will Democrats promise to restore them and promise to expand them? By allowing attacks on Black history, Democrats are also giving a wink and a nod as the historical basis for reparations and our other social justice claims are also under attack. Democrats are doing that deliberately. No matter what they may say publicly, they do not want to have to do pathetic gestures like housing vouchers and all of the other phony reparations gestures that they've done, because the grassroots isn't fooled by this. And the more that the Democrats pretend to do reparations, like the giving back of Bruce's Beach, etc., the greater the chances become that they will eventually be forced into a real debate about doing real reparations. So Democrats want this issue to be buried altogether. And that starts with letting the Republicans do the dirty work of burying the history. Democrats are fully in favor of that. And on a side note, you got one of the main tethers in the Congressional Immigrant Caucus, Richie Torres. He was acting like he was standing up to Jillian Michaels on CNN. What a joke. You got a tether calling himself speaking about American slavery, which nobody in his lineage had anything to do with. And he himself, you can count on one hand the number of times he's even talked about the issue. But this is who the white media puts on camera to stick up for teaching slavery in America's museums. End of rant on that one. But the point is, I'm not seeing anything from the Democrats but the same old shaking their empty heads and saying that mean old Trump, and this is why you need to vote for Democrats. Well, over here, we don't vote for nothing. I need to know what I'm going to get for my vote. You got to tell me. And what the Democrats have told me is nothing. Democrats are so dedicated to doing absolutely nothing for Black people, to maintaining the policy of benign neglect. They're so dedicated to making sure that they don't even mention us, that even when talking about preserving slavery exhibits in the Smithsonian, Democrats don't dare say that they're going to lift a finger to preserve Black history. 3 generations ago, both parties embarked on a strategy of benign neglect. And this is what it looks like. This is what it is. That's the reason why back in 2015, in the dying days of the Obama administration, just before the election that Hillary lost, at the height of the BLM protest, there was that leaked memo from the DNC that was made public, where they were telling Democrat politicians how to dodge and evade the demands that were coming from these activists. Quote, listen to their concerns. Don't offer support for concrete policy positions. There it is. Pretend to be sympathetic. Let these little Black people here tell you their concerns, but don't offer to support anything. They tell you a policy that they want, do not promise to support it. This is benign neglect. Pretend to be sympathetic, but in reality, you're just waiting for them to finish speaking so that you can go reassure the local police union that they're going to get as much money and guns to kill Black people as they want, and that there will be no laws passed to finally rein in these savages. And these were the people who were putting on kente cloth after George Floyd was murdered, and who told you and me that they care so much about Black people and their hearts bleed for us. Oh, they're just so anti-racist, right? Well, as Noam Chomsky said, it's the most sophisticated form of propaganda when something presents itself as opposition, when in reality it's actually support. The Democrats' position is actually no different than what you would expect from a so-called moderate, quote-unquote, Republican. And I know that in the GOP, moderate is a loaded term, but by that I mean a Republican who doesn't immediately start defending slavery in the first 5 seconds. That seems to be what qualifies as moderate in the GOP these days. But if you talk to a Tim Scott or a Darrell Issa about police violence, those guys wouldn't lecture you about police do a dangerous job, but if you told either of them that there need to be policies put in place to punish the police and to remove qualified immunity, those 2 guys wouldn't so much as even hint that they would ever support anything like that. They would politely listen and then tell you that everyone's opinion has value, etc., and they want safer streets and police need more and better training, etc. But they're not going to say a thing about any actual policies. Now, how is that any different than what the Democrats do? If you're not talking about punishing the police, if you're not pushing legislation to do that, if you're not instructing agencies that you want that done, then you're just wasting our time. And the same thing goes for these GOP attacks on Black history. Democrats have had several years and successive controls of Congress to show what they'll do on this issue at both the federal and state levels, and they won't even take a stand on it. Where's even one Democrat at to promise to yank federal funding from any state or school district that removes Black history or tries to whitewash it, or tries to otherwise defend slavery in any shape, form, or fashion? Where are they at to do that? Where's the Democrats who will use the power of the purse and every federal office they have to punish Republicans for these kind of maneuvers? They've had several years to do it and haven't done it anywhere, not even once. That's how you know the Democrats are actually in favor of these moves. The two major parties are both wings on the same white supremacist vulture. Republicans do the dirty work that Democrats can't. When Democrats get in office, they just start telling black folks all the things they can't do for us. Now, two good things will come out of all this. First of all, people are going to see that white supremacy is on the march and that they cannot wish it away or hit the political snooze button by voting for Democrats or try to ignore the bad guys into disappearing. You're going to have to actually fight them and get off your butt and do that. Secondly, people are seeing that Democrats aren't going to do anything about these Republican attacks, and that's going to have people looking at the Democrats with fresh eyes for the first time in their entire lives. Democrats will yell about how mean Republicans are, but not one of them will talk about crafting policies to punish the GOP for it, or about reversing these policies. They'll try to BS their way past the voters with a bunch of hot air and empty rhetoric. That's what Kamala Harris tried to do. On everything from reparations to punishing police to the genocide in Gaza, she would express phony sympathy, but she wasn't about to take a concrete position, especially not for the policies the grassroots voters are demanding. Oh, I'm sorry. In actuality, she did take a solid position on reparations. She said, I'm not going to do anything that's only going to benefit black people. No. And she wasn't alone. Bernie Sanders said, reparations, that's not feasible. Elizabeth Warren, she said, reparations for what? So the Democrats have taken concrete policy positions on reparations. They are solidly against it. And if they're against reparations, which they are, that also means that they're solidly against teaching the historical basis for reparations. They too would like to see the issue of slavery fade from the American consciousness, because the Democrats, like the Republicans, also hope to escape reparations. Now, they can't say that publicly, but they don't have to. They let the Republicans say it for them. Democrats have made it crystal clear that the people will have to force changes onto the system, and that Democrats will do nothing to help. And if that's the case, then what the hell will we look like voting for them? You want to make the orange man the bad guy here? That's fine. That's his brand, and I got no problem with heaping scorn on him. My question is, who's the Democrat hero that you're supposed to be counting on to come to the rescue? Which one of them has said that they're even going to? Because if you're really going to overlook that fact, then Donald Trump's not the only one desperately trying to forget the past. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Chris Baker, D. Sherrod, E. Rock, Jacques Hargett, and Julia Ragland. Salute to them, and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.
All right, so that's that. The dump threatened Smithsonian over slavery. So the next topic is Native Americans, the $5 Indians. Keep telling us that we were already here, but these ones that keep talking about they are Native Americans, they have their tribal cards. They're in fear of deportation now under the dump. ICE is deporting tribal citizens. But wait, I thought y'all were original natives. How you getting deported and you're the original people of this land? Something's not adding up. So Lisa gonna give us an update on it.
Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. This is my final live stream today. I did 4. Man. Okay. So, y'all, I am going to talk about what they label natives, which we now know they are not natives in this land. When they came across the Barren Straits, people were already here. And I can tell you those people were very melanated. In fact, a video today, it was real interesting. It said these are pictures that were hidden about the true natives of the land. And let me tell you, every single picture was melanated people. They were not anything else. So Turtle Island was very melanated. Woolly haired and melanated. Okay. And we know they've been hiding this mess. And, you know, they think we don't know. and they have a fear of us finding out, but they're not very good at hiding things. They just think they are, that type of thing. So, yeah, it's been busy. It's been busy. I still got to get the orders together tonight. If you want to order, as long as you get it in before midnight, it will go out tomorrow. So you still have time if you're interested in purchasing something. All right. So we're going to talk about this. They are complaining because they're saying they're being harassed by ICE. Wants these people out of here. He wants them off of these reservations and out of this country because he said they falsified who they are. And it's not just them. This government took part in labeling these people as natives. They didn't really take it upon themselves to do it. This government had a lot to do with it too. It is taking the identity away from us and putting it on others. They've been doing this forever now, since they've been in the land. So I want you to hear what some of them have to say and what some of our people have to say. Let me share my screen and we'll get started. Give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you.
But what I know and what I've heard and what I've seen is that the GOP is trying to say that birthright citizenships of Native Americans isn't a real thing. That we were not here, and so it's not our right just to be a citizen of America because, now I'm hearing because we actually came from Siberia and we weren't always here. So that's what I'm getting at, is that there's a lot of different places I've heard, and right now up north, people's reservations are getting split in half and some are being sent to Canada. How is that possible? I don't really know. The Siberia thing, I don't know. I'm just reading comments, and this is what everyone's saying is we weren't from here. We're not the first ones here. Okay, I wasn't here years and years and years ago, so I can't really tell you, but from, I don't know, just history in itself, I don't know where the hell we're all going to go. So be it. I mean, turn up in Siberia, I guess. All my natives are just going to meet me there. We're going to have a big old party in 49, It's probably what we're going to do.
So you mean to tell me that you got so-called Native Americans who are sitting around complaining, talking about their relatives are being deported and they are being misidentified and that they are scared and need to travel around with their tribal IDs with them? And they also said that it's not them, these are their cousins that's being deported. Now I got a question. Foundation of Black Americans and Foundation of Black Americans alone. If you ain't a Foundation of Black Americans, this question is not for you. Foundation of Black Americans and Foundation of Black Americans alone. Do any of y'all got a cousin that could be deported? Any of y'all? Any? I don't speak too fast. Do any of y'all got a cousin that could be deported? Also, correct me if I'm wrong. How can they mistake you or somebody? This reminds me of that Jesus story. When I was little, this is how I knew Christianity was When I was little, I heard that story of Jesus escaping to Egypt. How the hell can you escape and blend in somewhere if none of the people look like you? Didn't make no sense. However, he could run to somewhere and blend in if all the people look like him. And also, riddle me this. I seen a comment saying, it'll reach a point to where tribal IDs will not matter no more. History always repeats itself with a broken heart. So I'm guessing that's a Native American that left that comment. But I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm smoking and thinking. I'm sipping and thinking. What did you mean by that? Because history repeating itself for us is still here. Bad or good, no matter which part of history you want to pull. You want to pull our creations, you want to pull out slavery, you want to pull out the way they enslaved us on our own plantation, you want to pull out anything, it's all here. What do you mean by history will repeat itself and your tribal IDs will not matter no more? It's almost like you trying to say, and I'm just trying to put two and two together because that comment, it was equaling 5. Because it's almost like you're saying that you made a deal with somebody that has crossed you before, and you're at risk of them crossing you again. But I don't know.
Why is my people so in a frenzy about the Native Americans being detained and deported? Help it make sense. I mean, just make it make sense. Our government don't need them anymore. Their purpose has been served. They living on federal subsidized land, not paying taxes, and they getting money from our government. And they not even the original people of this land. They're from Siberia. They came onto our land and they befriended and betrayed our people, sided with the Spaniards, helped conquer our land and enslave our people. And when we was freed from slavery, they were the last ones to free their slaves. They didn't even want to free us. And see, our government knows who the true indigenous people of this land is. And when our people become known as the true indigenous people of this land, all those taxes that our ancestors then paid and that we done paid, they got to get it back to us. So basically, fuck a reparation, we want restoration. Time for a change. Educate yourself. Knowledge is key. Know who you are, know self. Continue to grow and stay woke. And I have a nice day.
Trump is showing no discrimination even towards Native American Indians. So if you look right here, you will see raising race. So I'll zoom in on this so you can see it. But this headline, NBC News, by the way, we know that's an accurate news source. NBC News says Trump immigration raids snag U.S. citizens, including Native Americans, raising racial profiling fears. We know that's accurate, right?
So as y'all know, and for those who don't know, the Native American people are currently being deported. And now you may be wondering, how can you deport somebody who's native to this land, who's indigenous to this land? And I got one simple answer for you. They're not. See, the Gov paid and brought them over here to cosplay as the actual indigenous people. And I know a lot of y'all aren't going to want to hear this, but the actual indigenous people are Black people. And let me be clear, Black Americans. And technically, we shouldn't even refer to ourselves as that for legal reasons. But for the sake of this video, and that's what most people are familiar with, that's what we'll go with. And before all y'all get in the comments talking about what's your source, oh, you're just yapping. My genealogy is my source. Just looking at my genealogy debunks the whole Atlantic slave trade. So let's start there. And so they migrated over here to cosplay as us. And this can give some context as to why Black people have been reclassified so many times. There are so many different names for Black people if you look throughout history. And this is why. Because if I don't teach you who you are, if you don't know who you are, well, then I can put somebody else in your place to cosplay as you. So you don't reap the benefits of your shit. And so therefore I can take your stuff and put a patent on it. And, you know, yeah. Those people that y'all think are Native American, or those people that pop up in your mind when you hear the term Native American, are actually Siberians. They come from Asia. They come from the East. So, and we know how our government gets down. You know, I use you for whatever agenda, for whatever plan I have in store. And then once I don't need you anymore, I kick you to the curb. That's all that's taking place.
ICE started detaining Native Americans during their immigration sweeps, and because immigrants are not getting due process, they will be deported. So far, there are reports of this happening in both Arizona and New Mexico. And the majority of those detained have been from the Navajo tribe. But as the immigration deportation efforts continue to expand to other states, such as California, this will happen more often and affect more Native American tribes. Without due process, they are unable to verify that they are in fact citizens of the United States and will therefore be deported from the United States. Where they will be deported to, who knows? But it's very clear that under the Trump regime, his goal is to create a white Christian ethno-state and remove anybody who does not fit that description. The Native Americans were here first. America's a melting pot of different cultures, races, and religions. And the fact that MAGA claims that they are so American and patriotic is a fucking joke. This is one of the most un-American things to happen in modern American history.
We have some big news right now. NBC News has confirmed that as part of Donald Trump's mass deportation raids, ICE agents have snagged American citizens along with Native Americans, and racial profiling fears are growing because of it. According to NBC News, the Navajo Nation office has been flooded with calls from tribal members living off reservation, with many saying that they have been questioned as part of ICE raids. Navajo Nation citizens are American citizens. And the Navajo president has even confirmed that there have been negative and sometimes traumatizing encounters between ICE and Navajo Nation citizens. Newark, a U.S. military veteran who's an American citizen, was detained for a period of time because of an ICE raid. In New York, a warehouse manager who's a U.S. citizen has been detained for a period of time. With more raids to come, this will likely only increase. If you're watching this video and you are fearful, carry your identification with you and go to the ACLU's website to learn more about what you can do if an ICE agent does approach you and you are a U.S. citizen, for example. As always, comment below your thoughts, spread the word, and follow along on here and on my other social platforms linked in my bio.
Okay, y'all. So what's happening now is a lot of the reservations, people are splitting now. And quite a few of them are now running into Canada because Canada is not doing this, all this deportation stuff. So a lot of the people from these reservations are going into Canada so that they don't get deported. Donald Trump wants to send these people back to Siberia. That's where he wants to send them. And I think that ultimately the majority of them are going to go into Canada. They're not going to just be a sitting duck. They're just going to forget trying to fight this government because they're not going to be able to fight it. Donald Trump wants them out of here. They're not going to be able to fight the government. So ultimately, they'll just run into Canada where they're not going to be hassled. That's what I think they will do. And they're already doing this right now. So they're aware. I think many of them know exactly that they come out of Siberia, because there are some videos of them talking about it. I just couldn't get those videos because they had music playing in the background. But many of them know they originated out of Siberia and not here. Which goes to show you that since Trump has been in office, he has studied this stuff. He knows. That's why he knows the 14th Amendment applies to us. And I always thought it was odd that we got citizenship long before these alleged natives. They didn't get it until 1924. And it never made sense to why we got it before them and they were so-called natives. Now it makes sense. I think even back then they knew that they were not real natives because they took their time giving them citizenship. citizenship. Remember, it was still the 1800s when we got ours. They didn't get theirs until 1924. That says a lot right there, you know? And like the one woman said, they got cousins that are being deported. Well, then that tells me you couldn't possibly be Native. You know, I mean, look, we know our families aren't going to get deported. So that says a lot right there. Siberia. Donald Trump wants to send them to Siberia, where they came out of. That's where he wants them to go. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, look, yeah, you're right. They got all kinds of reparations multiple times, not just one time. They got reparations multiple times. And they got their own land, which are the reservations. They have done a crappy job in taking care of the reservation. Even if it was crappy, they could have made something decent out of those reservations if they wanted to, and they didn't. They just sit there and they live in them houses that look like raggedy shacks. I don't know if any of you have ever viewed some pictures from those reservations. Those houses are shacks. And it looks like they haven't improved the land since they've been in it. So that's where it stands right now. You know, I think many of them are going to be gone before they have the opportunity to deport them. But they are complaining that ICE keeps harassing them. That's what they keep complaining about. Mm-hmm. So if their cousins are being deported, so what? Are y'all got some connection with the Latinos or something? You know, because that's what I'm starting to think. So then you really couldn't be real. Mhm. Boy, this place is a trip. They did everything to confuse people so that you would never know who the real true owners of this land are. That's what they did. They just did all this confusion, hoping that nobody will ever figure out who the original owners of the land are. And I knew it had to be us because look at how many times we have been reclassified. Multiple times. And no other group has been reclassified like we have been. It says a lot. It says a lot. Mm-hmm. If anything, they need to get their money back. They need to get a refund. You gave money to people that never really deserved it. They didn't deserve that money. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I saw when I was shocked when I started seeing pictures that came out of those reservations. Those people will live in squalor. They really will. And they have all this time. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. Y'all got reparations multiple times. You got the casinos. You got all this money given to you. You could have fixed that land up 1,000 times over by now. They could have done a lot with that land and they have failed to do it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's on them. They squandered their time. That's on them. Mm-hmm. And plus, they're big adversaries of ours, too. If you go out on TikTok, they don't do nothing but fight with us. And I was like, those are not our people. You know, this it takes me back to that chart where they got Native American on the chart. If these folks are Siberian, they originally come out of Siberia, then that's a Gentile that you done put on the chart, on that Hebrew chart. You put Gentiles on there. No, those are not our people. You put Gentiles on the damn chart. And they're still using that chart, by the way, y'all. They're still using it. And they're saying these natives are people, and the natives are over there talking about they gonna sue Black Americans for, if you go on TikTok, you'll see the videos. They're gonna sue Black Americans for claiming we are indigenous. They're gonna sue us. Does that sound like your brethren? I'm serious. Does that sound like your brethren? They're no brother of mine. That's why I said they put Gentiles on the chart. And how is that going to go over with the Most High? You have been pushing that chart and listing Gentiles and saying there are people. Yeah, well, I don't care what they do. All I know is if they take it to court, then they're going to be forced to reveal who they really truly are, right? That's going to make them, they're going to have to prove in court how they are indigenous to the land. They're going to have to prove it. So let them go to court and prove it. Good. And maybe we can get this thing resolved once and for all. That's the way I see it. Well, I tell you what, they got a deep hatred for us. If you go over there, everybody does. You know, if you go on TikTok, every damn group over there is fighting with us. Every single one. I mean, it's unreal, but I'm kind of glad that the Most High is showing us, you know, these are not your people. They don't like you, and they're not like you. And none of them, if you notice, none of them are cleaving. None of them, even these natives, they're not cleaving. They're not. None of these groups are. So the ones that do, it's going to be very few. I can see that the Gentiles going into the kingdom, it's going to be very small, because see any of them stepping up and trying to cleave to us yet. We don't see it. We see them trying to fight with us and complain about us, but they're not cleaving. And that says a lot. Yeah, well, a lot of the Latinos try to say they're indigenous. And now many of them are trying to lie and say they were in the land when slavery was going on. And that's a lie. They were not in the land. They were not in the land, but they're now trying to lie and say they were. That's why they were complaining when the movie Sinners came out, and they were like, well, where's the Latinos? There were no Latinos in the land back then. Y'all might have been out west, but over here on the East Coast and the Southeast, y'all weren't here. You were not here. You might have been in places like California, Arizona, places like that, but you were not. When you go look at the census, there were no Mexicans over here on the East Coast and in the Southeast. They were not here. They were not here. And they're not in the census at all. Mm-hmm. But I find it hard to believe that these folks are Israelites and they can't even stand the melanated people that are really Israelites. But that you're going to, maybe you should explain that. I mean, I know that we have our differences, but their hatred is right up there with the Latino. Seriously, I would say it's equivalent to their hatred for us, these natives. Well, Siberians. Mm-hmm. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. This is my final live stream for today. I am looking at a couple of stories that I might do tomorrow, but I'm still looking. But no, our people, by the way, I want to make a correction, did not bomb Iran. Iran made a statement. I think somebody did not understand what they were reading. Iran made a statement that they were ready if Israel ever tried to attack them again, they're ready. That's all I saw that came out in the news over the last few days. Them making that statement. That's it. So, y'all, on that note,
Thank you, Lisa. We've been saying this for decades that we the original people here, and now we're seeing it in full fruition. So shout out to the dump for getting these mugs up out of here. Send the masters back to Siberia. I'm so sick of these so-called goddamn natives. Them mugs talking about they is the original people on this land. That's a goddamn lie. And like Lisa said, they didn't get their citizenship till 1924. We got ours in the 1800s. So who's really telling the truth here? And then, like she said, they just as racist as the damn Latinos. I done got into it with these mugs in person and online about their so-called nativeness. The mugs ain't no goddamn natives. They're a bunch of fucking imposters from damn Siberia. And they take their ass back to Siberia. Stop talking about, you're on indigenous land. We are the original people of this land. No, we're the original people of this land. And that's what they didn't want us to know. And that's why they kept reclassifying us over and over and over and over and over again. Every 20, 30 years, our classification changes. We're the only people in this country whose classification has changes every 20, 30 years. That's not a coincidence. Black Aboriginal FBA, Foundational Black American Family, that's by design. They didn't want us to know that this was our land. They want us to think that our land is somewhere far off in Africa somewhere. And really, our land is right here. And like I've stated numerous times, I have Aboriginal lineage in my family. My grandmother was Blackfoot Indian. So, on my mom's side. So it's like, what the hell are these people talking about? But yeah, get these mugs up out of here. Because like, get them damn Latinos up out of here. And let the original stewards of the land reclaim our land. All right, so moving along to the last topic. And that is punctuality. Black people, Black Aboriginal people, so-called people of color have a hard time with being on time because time is a new concept to us. Originally, we didn't really have this notion of time, so or being on time. So our brother Black Truth United is going to give us an update on why we need to be more punctual.
Salute family and welcome back to another video. This is Black Truth United, and today we're going to be covering a very important subject that I don't see a lot of this topic that has been ailing our community for the longest, and that is punctuality. which simply means being on time for things. I want to remind everyone that timing is everything. There's a reason why for military operations, everyone synchronizes their clocks beforehand. We have to acknowledge that we are in a war, the greatest war in human history, against white supremacy, good versus evil, justice versus injustice. When we understand the gravity of this situation, we have to get serious, and that includes being serious about our timing. Timing is everything, not just in war, but in everyday things. Relationships, work, when you mow the lawn, the delivery of food or medicine, hell, the delivery of a joke, cooking, braking in your vehicle, literally everything. And white supremacists know this, which is why they created the stereotype of black people's time, otherwise known as colored people's time, which has been a toxin to our community, pretty much declaring that it's our standard operating procedure to just arrive late for everything. And this is a slap in the face, not just to us, but our lineage. It's nothing to be proud of. Now, unfortunately, some of our people have bought into this trope, thinking that it's funny or thinking that it's some kind of a game. And these are just people who are showing that they're unserious about serious matters. And yes, I am aware that quote unquote colored people's time is much worse in places like Latin America, the Caribbean, and Africa. But we're not really talking about them today. We're talking about FBAs. Because let's face it, we're really the only ones who are serious about dismantling the system of white supremacy. There are very few exceptions to this rule. So let's refrain from referring to any other racial or ethnic group. They're really not my concern for this video. Alright, let me clarify this. When I say why punctuality matters, I'm talking about time commitments, not casual things like I'll read this book eventually or I'll swing by the grocery store on my way home, stuff like that. I'm talking about serious time commitments, such as I'll be at the airport at 7 a.m. for my flight that leaves at 9, or I'll be at this meeting at 7 p.m. So that's what I'm referring to. Now, with time commitments, punctuality is everything. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're assigned to make a presentation for potential investors for the company you work for. And let's say you're the best at presentations. You've got the right visuals, you've got the humor to lighten the mood, charts, graphs, everything you need. But absolutely none of that matters if you arrive an hour late and the investors are gone. Again, timing is everything. And in that situation, there could be serious consequences for your lack of punctuality. We all know there's little to no room for error when it comes to foundational black Americans. We don't have the luxury of failing up like the suspected white supremacist. So you know there are going to be consequences for your lack of punctuality. Perhaps being fired, suspended, or demoted from your position. People can't trust you. There are real world consequences for having a lack of punctuality. So with all that being said, let me give you 5 solid reasons why punctuality matters. Number 1, it demonstrates respect. It shows that you respect other people's time and that you value the personal or professional relationship you have with the person or persons to whom you committed. Point number 2, it boosts your reliability and credibility. When you're on time for things, people know that they can count on you. Your word holds weight, and it may open other doors for you that you weren't aware of. Point number 3, it helps ensure that you'll finish on time. Let's use that same example of a presentation. When you arrive on time or early, you're set up for success. You're set up to actually end on time. Again, showing that you respect other people's time. It's extremely difficult to finish on time when you arrive late. Point number 4, it reduces stress. There's nothing like being behind the clock and being pushed into difficult decisions like whether or not you can shoot an armed individual who's lunging at a family member without hitting the family member because you chose to draw your weapon too late. Number 5 is that it reflects professionalism and discipline. When you're on time for things, it makes you stand out, especially in the digital age where people are so disconnected from traditional values like respect and tact. It gives you an edge professionally, and on a personal level, it builds discipline. You begin to have a more positive view of yourself and believe in yourself more when it comes to completing tasks. In other words, it builds character. So those are the 5 reasons that I came up with as to why punctuality matters. And if you have another reason, feel free to put that in the comment section. Now I'm going to give you a few tips. A good rule of thumb is to simply not commit if you can't make it. If you can't make it, let the person know, hey, I have another commitment at that time. If it's tentative, let people know I can make it, but I won't be there for the start. Something along those lines. If it's something you at least have partial control over, commit to a time that you can handle. For example, say, I can't do it at that time, but between this time and that time, I'm available. These are all things demonstrating that you respect the other person's time, and it's making that person aware that you take not only your time but their time seriously. Now, of course, let's get this out of the way. There are some unforeseen occurrences. If you recall in my series regarding the code for Black businesses, I covered this. If there's an accident on the highway or a family emergency, something like that that you can't control, just do your best to inform whoever it is that there will be a delay, and don't make it a habit. Also, when something happens, be sure to give a sincere apology and make steps to make sure that that doesn't happen again. I don't care if you have to set 100 alarms. I don't care if you have to make alternate routes. I don't care if you have to wake up an hour or two earlier. Make the adjustments necessary to be punctual. A wise man once taught me that on time is late for a leader. Of course, in our case, with the Black grassroots, the code is the leader, but on a small scale, you may be a community leader, or definitely, if you're a man, a leader of a household. But this message definitely resonated with me, and it taught me that it's important to be punctual for everything. Am I perfect? No, but I certainly am well above average when it comes to being punctual. Hell, I'm the type of person, if the commitment is serious enough, I'd rather show up an hour early and be sitting in the parking lot waiting rather than to show up 5 minutes late. I'm that type of person. It just baffles me how people, but especially grown people, can be so passive about being late for things. We've got to be serious as far as our timing. Timing is everything. And yes, for those who are religious, yes, the Bible does back this up. So let's reject this notion, this stereotype, this bad rap that has been placed upon us of this Black people's time, colored people's time nonsense. And let's respect one another enough to be punctual. And let's not just be punctual when it comes to massa. It never ceases to amaze me how a certain sector in our community will speed down a highway, California roll every stop sign, and run into the office to quickly punch in on time from massa. But when it comes to our own people, our own family, our own meetings, our own business commitments, all of a sudden being on time doesn't matter. Again, family, let's bury this stereotype of Black people's time. Punctuality does matter, and we each have to do our part if we're truly serious about replacing the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. Now, with all that being said, be one and be blessed, family. Peace.
Thank you, Black Truth United, for that. Yes, punctuality is a must. We got to exercise it, Black family. We got to do a much better job of doing it. I know I'm talking to myself because Lord knows I hate being on time for shit. And it's been like that since I was a young child. I hated being on time for school. I just hated it, man. I noticed when I was on time for things, it made things a lot smoother. It was a lot less stressful, and I was able to get stuff accomplished that I normally wouldn't have got accomplished if I was late. So that's all I have for y'all this afternoon now. Thank y'all for tapping in. Make sure y'all like and subscribe. And make sure y'all check us out tomorrow for a brand new episode of the Front Line Blacc News, Season 5, Episode 22. I'm not going to be able to redo 21, so it's going to be 22 Part 1. And I'll see y'all then. In the meantime, make sure y'all like and subscribe to all of our platforms. Frontline Blacc News on YouTube and Facebook. The Revolutionary Agenda on YouTube and Facebook. And Shabaka's Black Experience Enhanced on Facebook and Twitter. So peace, love, light, reparations, and separations, and Black empowerment. Chain Kruma signing out from the Mile High Income and illegal migrant flooded city. Soon to be arrested and deported to city. Get goddamn Mike Johnston up out of here. This dude is a straight up crook. He needs to go to prison. Straight up. All right. Peace, twin. Peace, Max 45.